This is AP News Minute. A newly leaked document says Russian hackers attacked at least one U.S. voting software supplier just days before the 2016 election, but the National Security Agency document didn't say whether the hacking attempt affected election results. London authorities named 2 of the 3 suspects in Saturday's London bridge attack that killed 7 people. Karam Shahzad Boot had appeared in a television documentary about extremists and was known to investigators, but authorities say they weren't familiar with Rashid Radouan. Bill Cosby's sexual assault trial continues near Philadelphia Tuesday. In opening statements, a prosecutor urged jurors to focus on Cosby, not the fictional characters he created. In Scottsdale, Arizona, authorities say an elderly man drove an SUV through a wall and into a swimming pool. The driver was safely rescued and sent to a hospital as a precaution. Matt Small, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
June 6th, 1944. Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, France in the D-Day invasion of World War II. Commanding the massive operation, General Dwight Eisenhower, who tells the troops,
"You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you."
Years later, D-Day veteran Vernon Groscup recalls what he saw on the beaches firsthand.
The destruction and the death, the bodies laying all over. And in other words, I've seen death before, but this was the ultimate, as I'd say.
1982. In the Mideast, Israel invades neighboring Lebanon to drive out Yasser Arafat and his Palestinian fighters. Months later, Arafat and the PLO leadership leave Lebanon, relocating to Tunisia in North Africa. Israel withdraws most of its troops 3 years later, but holds a border zone in South Lebanon until 2000. 1985. In Brazil, authorities exhume a body later identified as remains of Josef Mengele, the fugitive Nazi doctor. Known as the Angel of Death, Mengele performed cruel medical experiments on inmates at the Auschwitz concentration camp during the Holocaust. In 1933, the first drive-in movie theater opens in Camden, New Jersey. Drive-ins become a pop culture sensation across the United States in the first few decades after World War II. Today in history, June 6th. Camille Bohannon, The Associated Press.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Klayman. You know me as the founder of both Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch. I'm currently the chairman and general counsel of Freedom Watch. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I've been talking a lot lately about the left and how it's trying to destroy this country. It's financed by George Soros. We've had a lot of violence on college campuses, whether it's Berkeley or other California system universities around the country. It's frankly out of control as we speak, but it's also growing. And we saw the so-called protests when President Trump initiated his moratorium on immigration from 6 predominantly Muslim countries. I was even assaulted myself at Los Angeles International Airport by someone who had an Arabic accent and charged at me, was calling everybody racist. I brought a complaint with LAX over that. It'll probably ripen into a court case very soon. But we had a situation just last weekend in Portland, Oregon, where we had pro-Trump protesters who just wanted to protest peacefully what's been happening with regard to the left and this violence and their attempts to destabilize the country, to socialize it, to make it atheist, to make it pro-radical Islam, to make it anything that would be inimical to the vision of our founding fathers. And these pro-Trump protesters were attacked by these leftist protesters, and many of them had weapons. This is a bigger problem in this country. We're coming unglued. God forbid, and I hope this does not happen, and I will work my best to make sure it doesn't, but I do believe that we're headed into civil war or revolution in the streets. There needs to be law and order. This needs to be enforced. And frankly, it's time that the Trump administration, through its Justice Department, I know it's been busy because it's been attacked right and left, but it's going to have to get into these things and hold the left accountable without regard to political correctness. Because, frankly, at this point, it's either us or them. Now, we believe in being peaceful. They believe in violence. And Freedom Watch is doing whatever it can, and watch what we do just in the next few days with regard to the University of California in Berkeley. We're going to be bringing a lawsuit. It's going to be on behalf of a woman who was viciously attacked when she appeared just to be pro-Trump and to listen to a speech by someone at Breitbart News. But we need to really reach out, and we need to stop these things, and we need your strong support, because if we don't, we're all going to be in the streets very shortly. I never believe in violence, but there are people out there that do, and God forbid this country could literally explode. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, freedomwatchusa.org. Please contribute generously to our cause. We are the mouths that roared. We are your Justice Department. We're doing whatever we can to peacefully in the courts to prevent a violent revolution in this country. And to frankly, there's a war with the left. We're going to do it in court. But these people need to be put back on their heels. They need to be put back in their cage. They're literally animals. And that's why we need your support, because we're dealing here with vicious people who know no bounds. They're like the Bolsheviks in 1917 in Russia, which became the communist Soviet Union after that. They are communists. In fact, recently, tongue-in-cheek, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, referred to these people as communists, interestingly enough, and ironically, he was right. God bless you. God bless America. God save America. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. Thank you.
Seven people were killed and almost 50 injured when marauding terrorists went on a van and knife rampage in London last night. Because carrying on exactly as before after the Manchester bombing worked out great, didn't it? The terrorists shouted, "This is for Allah," while they slashed at women's throats.
When you're saying they were stabbing everyone, what did you actually see them do?
They were running up going, "This is for Allah." When they first see him, they went, "This is for Allah," and they run up, they stabbed this girl, I don't know how many times, 10 times, maybe 15 times. And she was going, help me, and I could not do nothing.
The BBC has footage of the terrorists saying this, but is still refusing to broadcast it. The attack was celebrated again by Muslim viewers of Al Jazeera. 41 attacks and 451 dead so far during Ramadan. One of the victims says he was approached by a man who said, "This is for Islam," before sticking a knife in him. But of course, all this has nothing to do with Islam. The accomplices were arrested in Barking, where we paid for police to protect Islamist hate speech back in 2010. Once again, the community failed to alert authorities to terrorists in their midst, proving this is a far bigger problem than just radical Islam. But Sadiq Khan said terrorism is just part and parcel of living in a big city. Except if you live in Tokyo, Budapest, Prague, Warsaw, etc., etc., etc. Or any other big city without a huge Muslim population. Higher Muslim population, higher terror problem. Fact. Theresa May's response? To regulate the internet. Not a word about changing a border policy that allows ISIS jihadists who fought in Syria to slip back into the country. Not a word about interning the thousands of known jihadists who are allowed to roam our streets. Not a word about tackling the hateful ideology spread through mosques and prisons that inspires these attacks. Not a single word. Pathetic. May wants longer prison sentences for terrorists. Oh gee, that's really going to deter a would-be suicide bomber, isn't it? She says this ideology is a perversion of Islam, proving once again that she hasn't read the Quran. Hey, at least if we elect Corbyn, we'll be honest about the fact that we've totally capitulated. And what are leftists most outraged about? The innocent victims crushed and stabbed, their blood running down the gutter? No. They're more outraged about Donald Trump's frigging tweets. We can't go on like this. If the government doesn't introduce actual measures to fix this, vigilante groups will take it into their own hands. You'll see a spate of hate crimes, and the left will be more upset over that than the actual terrorist attacks. We need a total ban on people coming into the country from terror-linked countries, except if they're politicians, journalists, or doctors. If you're coming from Libya, Syria, or any of these countries without good reason, no, you're not getting in. We need to seriously look at capping Muslim immigration into the UK. We need a massive surveillance program targeting mosques and the immediate arrest of anyone preaching jihadism. We need known Islamists in prison to be put in solitary confinement for the duration of their sentence so they can't radicalize others. We need the thousands of known jihadists in the UK locked up for life or permanently deported. Those are actual solutions. Lighting a candle, tweeting hashtags, and lecturing me about Islamophobia isn't a fucking solution. That's surrender. That's capitulation. How about we honor the victims with more than just words and empty platitudes?
After 4 years of research, the next big game changer has arrived. Z-Shield, toxic metal and chemical defense support. It's made in the USA. It's filled with known compounds from nature that are absolutely associated with detoxifying the body, and it supports the Infowars.
All right, everybody. We spoke with George Webb about, about 6 weeks ago, seems like something. Of course, we're already into the 6th month of the year. It's just blowing by like your typical week. But in any case, we have him on Caravan to Midnight right now. You know, he calls himself the accidental journalist. I'm thinking he's more like the providential journalist, George Webb, leading the charge in an ongoing project that ties together the people, places, and events of endemic corruption across the federal, state, and local agencies. A 4-month-old YouTube investigative series has tens of thousands of subscribers and a couple of million views. So he's doing something right, and we're going to talk to him right now. George, how are you?
Great, John. It's great to be back on your show again.
You know, with these little quips, these little pieces of information that come in text form, and then the little quips that are repeated through various news sources from fellows like Soros and people who just won't let it go, like Clinton. And then all of this, you know, student activism and Antifa and this and that. You know, I noticed they've been quiet for the most part this week, but I'm just, I'll tell you what, it just looks like the makings of, it feels like we've rolled the clock back to 1968, only it's the 21st century version, and it's just weird. So I know that you're out chasing down some things on Seth Rich, and we spoke with Liz Crokin yesterday, which was enlightening. She was delightful to speak with, but the information was rather disturbing. So I'm inclined to just kind of kick back and let you run with it.
John, you're going to get to be the guy who gives everybody the scoop. Watch today's videos for the kind of final pieces of the puzzle. And, you know, you have to, in this business, you have to go up a set of stairs, and sometimes you can't build your own stairs. You need somebody to build the stairs for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need several different carpenters to build the stairs to go from one platform to the next. So you weren't the only platform builder for me, but there was a lot of other ones. But I feel like this is appropriate because you were one of those people that helped me get to the next level with the story. And
appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's coming to an end. The whole network. There's two ways to crack the whole corruption thing. It's I call it the Senate Armed Robbery Committee instead of the Armed Services Committee, unless you consider robbery a service.
Right.
But the whole cabal, Hillary, McCain, Lindsey Graham, Biden, all the people and going back to Lugar, so forth, Democrat and Republican, all connected via these secure BlackBerries. Cracking that BlackBerry network was the critical the Circle Line tour. I don't know if you've gone to Manhattan, but the Circle Line tour is just going by me. And if you've never had it, I'm on Pier 62 right now. So if you've never done that, when you come to New York, don't do that Statue of Liberty tour. Take the one that goes all the way around the island of Manhattan. So I'm just throwing a plug so people know where I am and what time it is, because they can look back on the schedule. But so cracking the BlackBerry network was critical. The reason for it was pay to play, and it was the guy on the military side was Petraeus, and this is all in. What's the beautiful part about this is it's all in footprints. So there's metadata to support everything I'm saying. There already is a lot, and if Debbie Wasserman Schultz keeps having hearings, I might not have a story left. But I went to Capitol Hill last week, as a lot of my viewers saw, and that was really kind of gathering the last bits of string needed. And then, in every story, there's somebody that there's a couple of people that you have to, I wouldn't say betray, but you have to deceive them in order to get the larger story. So I'll just say that, and I'll just leave it right there. And that, but let's just say this: the intelligence agencies, everybody probably knows that, I've been fed breadcrumbs through intelligence agencies with the French and the Dutch and the Germans and the, all these. And I got the email, the proton mail to show it, as well as the Russians and as well as the Serbians. But it was the people such as yourself. It was the crowdsource the news, crowdsource the truth. I'm sorry, Jason. Crowdsourcethetruth.org. It was the H.A. Goodmans. It was the Jeff Rentzes. It was, the John B. Wells. You're going to be famous after this, John, by the way. Well, you're already famous, but you're going to have anything you want.
I'll settle for a shrimp cocktail.
You're going to get a shrimp cocktail out of this, brother.
Okay.
This is the real deal. And there's two ways that the network was cracked. And one way was Huma's 650,000 emails. Now, I'm talking about two things. One's rat lines, and the other is the pay-to-play for the different defense contracts.
Yeah.
So I had to work on the BlackBerries with the Awan brothers and get that whole that's the BlackBerry side of this. But that's the same BlackBerries that are going to be doing the pay-to-play. And their big weapons programs. All the subcontractors are forced to use the BlackBerries. So you crack the BlackBerries, you get the whole thing. The other way to get this, but McCabe wouldn't release it, is the 650,000 Huma emails. Either way, one way or the other, you get the emails. Once you get the emails, the whole thing falls apart. And I mean falls apart. This started when Hillary took the Senate. A little bit before that, when she put in the spy network in 1999, but then the whole thing got put in as far as pay to play, because she had nothing to negotiate with until she got on the Senate Armed Robbery Services Committee. And then that's when this whole thing unfolded. Of course, a lot of people probably saw me at when we live streamed from David Petraeus last night at the 92nd Street Y. And yeah, it's yours. This is yours.
Wow. So.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So just bring everybody.
When I'm on Chernovich tomorrow, you're going to realize this is all happening.
Oh boy.
So you got your open forum to ask questions.
Yeah. Well, look. So since we talked, just go ahead and let it rip, man. What have you actually discovered regarding Mr. Rich?
Well, Seth Rich is just one victim. I've said that from the beginning. It's following the trails in all the bodies, and each one gives you a different piece. Like you said, I've called this open source investigation kind of a family puzzle, because what I do, if viewers aren't familiar with me, is I take the open source intelligence that I get from my viewers who are doing all these Google searches, and in every one of these murders and so forth, there's 3 or 4 pieces that don't make sense. Now, that may be frustrating to a lot of people, but if you're collecting and you know the modus operandi over a long period of time, it's almost like learning different authors and how they speak and learning their cadence, or learning how John B. Wells talks versus H.A. Goodman talks. So you can almost anticipate the next word they say. If you listen to enough Caravan to Midnight, you know, you can almost tell how you go into commercial, for instance. I'm getting a lot of McCabe overhead. I always salute our law enforcement. So anyway, that's how you fill in the blanks on a lot of these things. So all that's metadata. Even though a lot of people are frustrated with different things, you know, Vince Foster, whatever it is, there's usually a signature in there.
Yeah.
And you can tell a George H.W. Bush signature from a Hillary signature from a mile away. And it's just a matter of putting those signatures together to write the book. And, you know, and that's where we're at today. And you're going to see that. It's going to actually unfold tomorrow.
So, well.
But the key is the blackberries. And let me give you an example. Okay. So imagine David Petraeus going to the Senate Armed Services Committee and meeting Hillary, and Joe Biden coming over and shaking her hand, and David Petraeus' hand, and then overcomes John McCain and overcomes Graham. And now George Bush is president, and wouldn't it be great if we had a weapons program? Now, the F-35 weapons program was already underway, and I can't remember how it started out, like an XP, some kind of joint strike fighter. It was a joint strike fighter, I believe. So it had started in Hillary's time in like 95. So this F-35 has been on the books now for, I think, since 95. And this was always her play. This was always her pay to play, was the F-35, the Joint Strike Fighter. And she was going to go through NATO. And the reason why you have to go through NATO is they were going to go out of the White House. And there's no more influence. So Bill, you can see this in all the Clinton email documents. There's the Bills on one side, the Hills on the other side. You got Justin Cooper and you got Doug Band and Lanny. They just want to have a good time. You know, but then there's the Hillarys or the Hills that are all the Ivy Leaguers. They want everything. And they've, dream up all these pay-to-play schemes and these Bridgewater investment hedge funds and these Lockheed, lobbyists and the Raytheon lobbyists. And that's more of a cabal. It's more of a meeting. It's more of a conspiracy where they all sit down together and figure out, how do we milk this thing for contributions for the rest of our careers. This is a 20-year project. This isn't a, hey, let's all go down to, Davos and have a great time and, check out the chicks. That was the Bills. The Hills are much more, let's milk this thing for 20 years and we'll get campaign contributions. McCain will get contributions from Raytheon. Lindsey Graham will get, in South Carolina, will get his from the Navy. Biden will, use the Naval Observatory as a spy network, and he'll do pay-to-play schemes in Ukraine and Kosovo through his sons, and it'll be a very controllable network because you can stay in the Senate for 20, 25 years. So if Hillary loses the presidency, she could still go back and be a senator from New York. She'll never do that now. But McCain is still in the Senate, and so is Lindsey Graham, obviously, and Biden's only recently out of power. So he was either a vice president, being the most powerful senator, really, in organizing the different committees. So, and he has, and the vice president, not a lot of people know, has the power of the Naval Observatory, which is just up the street from the British Embassy on Massachusetts Avenue, and that is the key to the whole surveillance network for these rat lines. And I'm talking about two rat lines now. I'm talking about the rat lines of war, what I call the rat lines of war, and that's going to be your organ harvesting and your drug trafficking and your child trafficking and all that. Those are the spoils of war, and then also your police contracts through DynCorp. Those are all your DynCorp rat lines. That's Steve Feinberg. And then you're going to have your pay-to-play rat line, which is different. That's all going to be run through the Congress. So different senators are going to control that pay-to-play. So that's why you need a spy network on one side to control the pay-to-play network on the Congress side. And that's why you need a rat lines of war, Steve Feinberg. You still need BlackBerries now to connect all this. You need secure BlackBerries to connect the whole communications network. And with the BlackBerries, you're sending the emails, okay? So compromising emails, the 650,000 emails opens the whole investigation up, or intercepting the BlackBerry traffic, the encrypted triple DES BlackBerry traffic, which has been done now. And I didn't need Hammer 2 at NGA in St. Louis to do it. I didn't do it, but somebody did it. And that cracks the network as well. So even if McCabe sits on the 650,000 emails, you still crack the network by cracking the triple DES. And that's it. I mean, Clapper puts the whole thing together. It's a beautiful system. It's ingenious, actually. I still say, I know people want to degrade him, but he's a genius. Brennan is his dimmer, but Brennan's pretty damn good as well. And it's their network. They put the whole intelligence side of this network together. And all the way back to when Clapper was at NGA. Clapper is really the architect of the whole thing, and it's a beautiful network. It's a thing of beauty.
But who's the genius?
Clapper.
Oh, Clapper.
I believe Clapper's the genius. Because Clapper, before, you got to realize, he was all the way back to Vietnam as the Air Force general. So he's going to be the guy who's using the Air Force equipment to fly everything around. He's going to be the guy who thinks up, flying stuff into Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha. He's the genius of the whole, I would say, logistics. He's the FedEx of this whole system. And he came up with a covert communications network using these BlackBerries. McCain's going to be your key funder of RIM in the Congress. Yeah, so everybody's playing a part in this Shakespearean play, and the way you have to have it that way. Hillary isn't doing everything. If that were true, Hillary would be the most amazing person ever. It is a conspiracy because it has to be. It's too complex for just one person. So Lindsey Graham has to be the guy who attack dogs anybody in the Senate who gets near this story, right? So he has to run out into the Senate foyer there at the hard office building and do the diatribe against whoever starts getting close. So everybody has a role to play, and it's lasted now, I think, ever since, well, at least since 1999. So, and there's a presidential directive, and it just for people who are now saying this is the craziest story I've ever heard. Just go to my website or Google Presidential Decision Directive 62 to create a union between the FBI and the CIA, signed by Bill Clinton in May of 1998. And that really releases all the funds. It's very vaguely written to create a disruption campaign, but all the money for that is funding the security forces, the FBI in the counterterrorism division. It's funding this guy named Andrew McCabe to put in this counterterrorism network, which is, there's a big wall between the field FBI, which is the not uncorruptible, but, pretty darn clean sworn agents, and this new CIA infiltration of agents all over the world to run these rat lines. And in the United States, that David Petraeus writes that network and he calls it Joint Task Force on something, and they rename it Joint Terrorism Task Force in the United States, JTTF. It's sort of an intimidation network of local police forces and state police forces and other federal agencies with intelligence agencies with enforcement power. And that becomes the program in the U.S. And it gets launched the JTTF gets funded with the crime bill. And that's why Hillary was pushing the crime bill so hard. So that gets funded in, I think they tried the first time in 95 and then the 96, and they keep doing these things to kind of push it along. And then 1998, they still can't get the Patriot Act through because you need illegal search and seizure. You need a lot of things to enable this enforcement network. And so finally, 9/11 happens, and then the Patriot Act sails through. And the biggest thing is the illegal search and seizure. You need illegal search and seizure to make the network go. But they were trying to do it with executive orders bit by bit. So you're going to start with presidential decision directive about 62, then you're going to see a 63 that does a little bit more, and a 64 that does a little bit more, and 65. But they couldn't get there. They couldn't get that Fourth Amendment out of the way. And then they finally, with 9/11, was the perfect coincidence, because then they got the Patriot Act sailed through. And if you look at the 28 pages that George Tenet suppressed as director of the FBI out of the 9/11 report, it basically is the blueprint. You know, we're going to have fusion centers in every state. We're going to have a Department of Homeland Security. We're going to fuse all the data from local, state, and federal. I'm going to walk away from the barking dog. We're going to fuse all the data together in these fusion centers. Well, if you look at Doug Valentine's book, he wrote a book called Phoenix Project. It's just a redo of the Phoenix Project, which is you first start with a headquarters, and start with regional offices, to, you know, the torture centers, and then you fan out from there, and then you develop an enemies list. That's just how the CIA does things. And the same thing has happened. So deplorables in the United States, the translation is deplorables. So the enemies list or the kill list in Vietnam, in Doug Valentine's book, is now just translated to deplorables. And that's Hillary's deplorables plan. So, and instead of outright, you know, kill squads, you're going to have soft jihad. You're going to have opiate targeting. And it's going to start with veterans. You're going to take out veterans, gun owners, et cetera, but people who are, you know, kind of sticking up for the Constitution, et cetera. You're going to mock them as well, because you want anybody who says anything about the Constitution to be mocked, because the Constitution is your enemy in this little 1984 private security network. And I know that's a lot of words, and that's why it's hard to get all in one go. And that's why I break it up over 221 days. And it's a lot of videos. It's 700 videos, but it's really more like a tour de force, really. And it's really done by the American people and a very small group of committed searchers that put this thing together. I would say less than 1,000 people. And the work product is out there. You can Google it, and it gets better for every version of it gets better with every version. I'll stop talking now. Have I confused you adequately?
No, actually you haven't. So
okay, is that understandable?
I think it is. So there is a cabal, and the deep state would be Clapper, Clinton, Comey, and who else?
Well, McCabe's got to be in there. You've got to have McCain in there. You've got to have Lindsey Graham in there. You've got to have Biden in there. Just think of the Senate Armed Services Committee in 2002 or 2001.
Yeah.
And then you're going to bring new people in as new senators come in. So like a Ben Sass, you're going to bring a Ben Sass from Nebraska in. And it's kind of one of those graduation ceremonies, you know, when you bring a Ben Sass in, and that's going to be the center of the cabal. Okay. Now, a lot of people are talking. I'm sorry, I'm real near a heliport right now.
Can't hear it.
But a lot of people are. Can you hear?
No, we can't hear the helicopters.
Oh, okay. You can't hear the helicopter. Oh, great. So a lot of people are going to be involved, but the House is got a couple of committees. So really, I don't even want to call it a cabal. I just think of it as a good working company with good management practices. The underlings, your junior managers, are the House, and they're mainly to be kind of propped in front of CNN to tell the story. You know, it's kind of stage management. They're kind of stagehands. The real action is in the Senate, and the real boys club, and Hillary kind of broke the ceiling in that boys club, is the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee is going to be all your oil plays, your gas plays, your mineral plays, all that stuff, USAID plays, you know, that sort of thing, and then arms deals, and then your well, that's it, you know, and then that's you got to get to the Senate I'm sorry, when you get over to the Senate Armed Services Committee, that's going to be all your arms deals, which is just as lucrative, if not more lucrative, than the resource plays from the Foreign Relations Committee. And that is actually how it works. And so you have to control that Senate Armed Services Committee if you want the pay-to-play for the weapons contracts. You have to control that Foreign Affairs Committee if you want the mineral, oil, gas, resources play.
Yeah. So I take it that these cost overruns, for example, with the F-35, are deliberate. That's what this information suggests.
Yeah, so the game they ran on the F-35 is, and here's where everybody kind of gets, thrown by their little, there's a little three-card monte going on here, which is, I want the program to go on as long as possible, because I'm not going to make my money with the Lockheed. It's a big company, and it's the sugar is spread over a lot of shareholders. Now, I still want Lockheed to do well, but where I really want to put my money is in the stuff that hangs off the Lockheed. You put your money in the Raytheon missiles. You want to put your money in the UV pickup systems. So it's going to be like your Textron lenses, your surveillance systems. In the cockpit, you're going to want to pick up, and there's going to be different small startups, like I Have God, type systems, and different helmets, the special helmets. That's why the F-35, the helmet looks like, the fly. It looks like Jeff Greenberg couldn't get that damn thing on if he tried. The pilots, if the pilots were over 5'8", they couldn't turn their head. The helmet was so damn big. They didn't really care about the pilot's experience. They just wanted to put as much electronic trash as they could in that helmet so that they would get it, so it would be a good Christmas tree. And so the Senate Armed Services Committee, through surrogates, they're not stupid. They're going to go through their wife or their brother or their son or whatever. They're going to take positions like Petraeus has got a strong position in Textron. McCain has a strong position in Raytheon. And you're going to delay that because you want the public to pay all the R&D development. You want that to last as long as possible and develop the intellectual property as long as possible. And if you look at the story of the F-35, they actually had to change the name because the Joint Strike Fighter went on so long that people are going to be like, they're going to start complaining. Let's just call this a new plane. The same thing with the F-22 Raptor. Basically, they get about halfway through and say, we've got to punch something out. The F-35 is just basically a watered-down, a sized-down version of the F-22 with let's put in a bigger engine, for GE, and then the folks over at, I can't remember in Maryland, the other guys who make the engine got mad. The people that, I can't remember their name right now. It's not General Dynamics. But anyway, you get the idea, let's put a bigger engine in there, to make this guy happy or that guy happy. But the thing is this kind of Frankenstein, the F-35 is this Frankenstein agglutination of different pay-to-play schemes. And the reason why the F-35 is built in 39 different states, or maybe it's 38 or 40, I can't remember exactly which, is to have every senator has to have two fingers. So they get 80 senators. When you build it in 40 states, you got 80 senators. That's a quorum. Even if you have 20 that stand up and say, this is the biggest, boondoggle ever, you still have a majority. You still have a ability to override a filibuster with 60. So that's why they went all the way to 80, which is really overkill, because you'd think there would be some statesmanship and some statecraft where they wouldn't need all 80. But that's the name of the game. And the F-35, you're going to find Comey was involved. And in Bridgewater, I can't remember the guy who started it, but he goes from Lockheed to Bridgewater exactly for the reason to set that up. He's setting up the positions in all the startups, all the stuff that hangs off the F-35. Now, I'm not just saying it's an F-35 pay-to-play system. I'm just using that as a model. You're going to have the same thing with helicopters, the MH-C helicopter, the different Blackhawks and all that crap. And you gotta spread it out. You can't give everything to Lockheed. You got to give some to Boeing. Everybody's got to be happy, and there's negotiations and so forth in this stuff. But the 650,000 emails is going to be about half pay to play on the arms deals, and about half pay to play on these foreign relations deals, these mineral plays. So Biden is more of a mineral guy. He's more of an oil and gas guy and a mineral guy. He's going to be working with Frank Juster on that side with the foreign relations stuff. I don't really think he's got many positions on the arms side, but McCain's more and Graham are more on the arms side, and so you're going to see more pay to play with them on the arms side. So, and then the surveillance side goes both ways. In investing in the DHS network is a Christmas tree for everybody. There's DHS grants for everybody. There's DHS grants for local. There's DHS grants, or there's state grants, and there's federal supplements now that, like our IRS has armed agents. About everybody in the DHS Christmas tree of 22 agencies now is buying bulletproof vests and, armor-piercing long rifles and all that crap with gas masks and Narcan, antidote, if they have to spray an area, to subdue. So, do you really want your IRS agents showing up in an MRAP with, 8 guys coming out with long rifles? So I don't want to throw too many details, but I do want to paint the picture of exactly what those emails contain. And what I'm saying is the BlackBerry network, you don't need the 650,000 emails on Huma's server if you have the BlackBerry network cracked. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't a little bit of espionage, a little bit of spycraft. I'm not saying somebody went out and bought a hammer too and cracked it. The brute force and ignorance method. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying there are whistleblowers. There's going to be a couple. There's going to be 2 whistleblowers at NGA. They haven't come forward yet. I hadn't been able to figure out if they're the same ones that talked to Devin Nunes or not. That one day when he goes over to the Eisenhower building, on the side of the White House there. I thought it was initially, but I think now it's 2 other guys. But it all goes back to NGA. Clapper's in the NGA Hall of Fame, and he designed the whole thing. And he moved it from, and I don't know if it's Sterling, Virginia, or it's Leesburg Road. I think where's Hammer 1 was on Leesburg Road. This is the whole Larry Klayman and Dennis Montgomery thing. And then he moves it to St. Louis and builds a nice new shiny thing. And so all these stories about, hey, they're flying in these Muslim guys in the middle of the night, and they're not checking them at all, for the Customs Border Protection Service.
Yeah.
It's all to staff up that facility with interpreters, for the CENTCOM area, and then they're bringing in, Spanish-speaking interpreters for the SOCOM area and so forth. So you have to staff that up with interpreters, and now Trump's got the travel ban. So all these things start falling into place. Once you understand that initial structure of the Armed Services Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee, everything starts just falling into place because it's out there in front. You can go on the web right now and Google who's in the Armed Services Committee, and there it is. That's the cabal. And then the Foreign Affairs is going to be your other one. A little bit with Homeland Security also. Homeland Security is kind of the new kid in town, where a lot of money gets dumped. So I would throw Homeland Security in there a little bit, but still not nearly the size of pay to play as Foreign Affairs and Armed Services. And you have to have, don't control the White House. You have to have that because you go compromise NATO. You get all the NATO generals. You use your spies, Valerie Plame being one of them. You use your spies to compromise the generals, compromise Bouchard and all the other guys. You give Chandalone all the money for all the parties. All the anti-terrorism money goes to parties. And Chandalone, basically, most of the anti-terrorism money that NATO got, Chandalone is running that, compromising the generals over there. Lockheed is compromising the generals here in the U.S., and they've been doing that for a long time. And that's the key to NATO and owning NATO is no matter who's in the White House, I still have my rat lines. I still have my armed services deals, and I still have my foreign affairs deals. Now, I don't get the share I want. You know, I go from 60-40 to 40-60, but everybody works together. That's one thing. You know, when it comes time to do the National Defense Authorization Act, you see these guys who are normally always fighting, you know, for one seat, you know, to swing one way or the other, and then they come together and vote 98-1, you know, on NDAA. And that's why, because everyone understands the game. It's 60-40, 40-60. Now, I'm not saying the senators understand the whole network. That was figured out by about 1,000 researchers in this project, over 700 videos, and you know, I was the stenographer, so I'm no genius, but that was figured out by the American people with some sprinkling from the foreign intelligence services.
Gotcha. The big concern for everyone is how powerful, and it's sort of like, well, we know it's powerful, but how powerful is it? This cabal, and it can't be just operating within the United States. Certainly they have to have their global partners. So let me ask you this. Yes. When anybody starts, typically when somebody starts accusing their mate of cheating and always questioning and always voicing their suspicions, well, then you can pretty well figure that they're the one doing the cheating. That's just historically been the case, regardless of who you talk to about it. But the other thing is this. We keep hearing the Russians, the Russians, the Russians, the Russians, which suggests to me that there is way more cooperation between the stateside cabal and the Russians than anybody wants to actually be known. Are you picking up any sort of cooperation across the ocean blue and the other one across the ocean green with some people over there? Yeah, surely it's got to be a global network.
Great question. The wind's picking up here, so let me know if that's a problem.
That's all right.
Hillary, I got great news for Schiff and Schumer and on Andy Weiner and Monster Worldwide and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and all the Awan brothers and everybody in the cabal, or everybody a part of, let's just call it a company, everybody a part of that operation. Because I don't like the cabal because it sounds, you know, being Israeli, I don't know. And I mean being Jewish. So it is the Russians, okay? Hillary and all of them are right. It is the Russians. But it's not about the election. It's about the business and the way they're running the business. And they're running the business in a very public, open corruption kind of Tammany Hall way. And I don't know if you ever saw the Martin Scorsese 5 Gangs in New York, but they go down to Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall and they say the public has to believe it's a square game. The public has to believe it's a fair game. So let's go get 5 guys and just hang them. And you know, while we're robbing everybody blind, we got to say these 5, you know, blind dogs are what the cause was. And so it's not just the Russians that are taking her down. And this, you know, there's Bilderberg is meeting down in Washington and Chantilly, Virginia today, first day. And I saw Petraeus last night at 92nd Street Y, and I just gave him a wink because I know he's going to be down there. And I said, you know, today I did a film. I said, it's the Russians. Everyone in this global business conference wants Hillary out because she's bad for business.
I'll say.
And Blake Farenthold is going to be brought up, you know, on the House side, and you're going to have some new guy on the Senate side, and they're going to reform, I believe, around Tulsi Gabbard, because you got to have people that people trust in and don't just have this open contempt for business. It's bad for business. Hillary is bad for business. So what's happening right now in the House is Hillary's last, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is kind of that representative in the House. Schiff is that guy in Schiff is that guy in this is kind of the intelligence guy in the House, and then you've got Schumer obviously leads the charge Senate side. And then you've got Anthony Weiner, believe it or not, don't believe any of this sexting stuff. He knows Ehud Barak very well. I'll just say it right now, I'm not a Zionist, but I believe Israel has a right to exist, and I do have done, my favors for Israel. So I'm just going to be right up front about that. But Andrew Weiner runs the Awan brothers, and he runs that intelligence network, that intelligence gathering network. Or if it's a Pakistani nationals are in your country doing that, as an American, you may think that's not intelligence gathering, that's treason. So it's all in the eye of the beholder here. But so that group, that staff, let's just call it staff, is going to be pushed out. Baron-Hold is going to be brought in. You're seeing the death throes of it. Yes, it's right now. I mean, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is trying to accuse everyone in Congress of running the spy network, and she keeps having these open public hearings. She just had the chief, the CAO, the chief administrative officers staff on the carpet for giving the Awan brothers too much top secret clearance. She just had the guy for the Capitol Police, the chief, she threatened his budget 3 times for not giving up the stolen laptops that the Awan brothers stole and the stolen Blackberries they stole. So they're still sitting in an evidence cage over, supposedly, down at 119 D Street. So she is publicly making the case that this is what is actually happening. The Awan brothers screwed up. Hillary screwed up. They got too flamboyant. The Awan brothers, the 4 of them made $160,000 a year. Their wives also made $160,000 a year. Even the 22-year-old brother, right? That draws a lot of attention. Those are all public records. They have 12 houses. They have 12 businesses. They have all these import-export companies. They, have all these satellite technology companies. They have all these biotech companies. That's just not usual for a congressional staffer just coming into Washington, working for, one congressman. So, I went to Washington, I went to Washington and I talked to everybody and said, do you make $160,000 a year? Do you make $160,000? No, I'm an intern working here for free. My rich buddy makes $30,000.
Right.
So that whole thing is so obvious now that they have to move it over to the Republican side and realign. So they have to realign around Pence as the president. You got to have, I don't know who will be the vice president. You'll probably bring in somebody like, who knows? But then you can realign everything. You can keep McCabe as, you got to keep McCabe. If you want to keep this together, you got to keep McCabe as the FBI director. Brennan is out, but now when I saw the indictments yesterday, or not the indictments, when I saw the witness list for the unmasking that Grassley came out with yesterday,
yeah,
Susan Rice got hit, and then trying to remember who else is on that. Samantha Powers, the UN ambassador, got hit with that, and then Brennan got hit. So, and everybody knows that's how Mike Flynn and Carter Page and Paul Manafort and Trump all got unmasked. So it'll be interesting to see if Grassley really pursues that or if he just writes a letter. A lot of times they'll just, there's public outrage, so they'll write a letter. There's public outrage that Andrew McCabe took a $675,000 bribe, to 2 days after Hillary's story broke about the private server. And then he in the New York Times in March of 6th, 2015. So 2 days later, his wife is immediately installed. The candidate in Virginia for that state Senate seat is told, this isn't your turn today. The candidate's installed 2 days later, and Terry McAuliffe gives him a $675,000 bribe that day, So what did Grassley do? I mean, Grassley's the only person who even covered that story in the ethics committee. He just wrote a letter and just said, this disturbs me greatly. They've never called McCabe to ask him about that. So that's what I call a demonstration. You have to demonstrate that it's a not a rigged system, right? So it'll be interesting to see if they call Susan Rice first, and then the Intifada, as you mentioned, come out and say, this is racism, or if they call Samantha Powers after that, women in positions of power, you know. But if they call Brennan first and really get into some vicious questioning about there's only one way, there's only 5 agencies that can do this unmasking, and the buck stops at OD&I, CIA, and FBI. So it's either you, McCabe, or Clapper. Which is it? Because we're going to indict all 3 of you if you don't come clean. You know, if you hear that kind of testimony, that means Trump's figured it out. Now, there is this kind of New Zealand thing with Mike Pompeo, you know, the FBI coup thing with Kin.com that's swirling out there. So I don't know the veracity of that yet. I have to drill down on that. But the bottom line is, you got to bring in Tulsi Gabbard or somebody, or on the presidential side, you're going to have Pence. But then the next round, the Democrats will run Tulsi Gabbard. Schumer's got to go. Schiff's got to go. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has got to go. The Awan brothers got to get cleaned out. And then you got to put something like that in under the Republican side. So Blake Farenthold is your kind of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And then I can't remember the guy on the Intelligence Committee in the Senate. Burr is going to be your Schumer, new Schumer, and it's more like a majority whip. Only the majority whips aren't per party, because the parties are kind of not really relevant. The majority whip is really right now is going to be Burr. You know, he's going to be directing and say, here's the way we're going to go, Senate. And then when the Democrats take over, it's going to be Schumer as kind of the majority whip. And the minority whip's the same way. They're going to be the minority whips are more media. So the majority whips are going to be doing the votes, and the minority whips are going to be doing the CNN, you know, stuff. And it's shifting. It's shifted over. And basically what you've seen in the last, since Trump's been elected, is the minority and majority whips were Democrats. It's been Schumer and Schiff, CNN, right? Now they're going to flip over, you know, the Jeff Zuckers of the world, you know, and are going to flip over, and now we're going to see a lot less of the Schumer and Schiff show as these things come to light. Again, it's how hard Grassley and the Judiciary Committee pursues this. And you'll know right away by the witness, not just by the witness list, but by who's called will be the litmus test. So, but anyway, if the BlackBerry thing is true, if the triple des did get broken, and so that means a whole bunch of different agencies working together to break it with these foreign intelligence agencies have got that. They don't need Andrew McCabe to release the 650,000 human emails. They've got blackmail on everybody in the Senate, both on the foreign intelligence side, foreign affairs side, and on the armed services side. You see what I mean? The whole repository is out there, even if the 650,000 emails don't come out. Now, by McCabe. McCabe's sitting on them. He says he needs 5 years to go through them. Now, remember, these are emails of 19 different State Department employees that are illegally using ClintonEmail.com and Gmail accounts. Okay? So if this comes out, Hillary is sacrificed, but it's probably better that they come out. Then it depreciates the assets of these foreign intelligence agencies that have it anyway. It's better that the secret's out and just take your lumps now before an election cycle, rather than letting the foreign intelligence agencies control the cycle right before an election by releasing things selectively. And they could release things selectively for years. So you deal very high cards to the foreign intelligence agencies if you don't just come clean right now, if that makes any sense. They have it. Now, the rumor is they've cracked the BlackBerry network, and everybody knows the BlackBerry network's used to run these war rat lines, and it's being used to run these pay-to-play rat lines.
Yeah, you know what I find interesting? You mentioned the Awan brothers a while ago. There's a question here. How do the Awan brothers flee to Pakistan while under criminal investigations? Well, fake passports is one way. So what about Barrington J. Wisenant Jr., Wisenant. As a matter of fact, your name comes up here on the on a
Yeah, I
Reddit
broke
site.
that story yesterday. So what? Now I'm talking about the Hillary side of the network here, not the Republican side. The Republican side is going to be different. It's going to be coming in through Fort Huachuca down with John McCain, and he's going to have his own operative. And I haven't really cracked that side of the network. But the Hillary side of the network is going to be coming through here in New York at the New York Film Academy. And I released the name yesterday of a Pakistani ISI just as a model. I don't have the resources, so and these are always painful decisions because sometimes, like I said, a little deception and intelligence work is required. But I'm moving away from these kids. They're pretty noisy here on Pier 62. But wait a minute, make sure I got all my batteries here. Oops, I left the battery. I don't want to do that. They're going to think I'm a spy, so I better go back and get the battery. Hillary. So through the New York Film Academy, there's also going to be a company in Chevy Chase, Maryland called DAI, which is going to be the USAID funnel. The USAID funnel is it's called Development Alternatives. That's going to be another way to get people in on visas. I'm not sure if Anthony Weiner used DAI or New York Film Academy for the Awan brothers.
I mean, I don't get it. What's the tie-in between the American Film Academy and the Awan
what
brothers?
you do is you do once I have a company or a nonprofit, then I do an H-1B visa.
Gotcha.
And I bring them in as H-1Bs. So you're going to bring people in through a front, a foreign affairs front called Inter-America. And I have a source in Congress for this. And Inter-America, believe it or not, does the IT services for about 150 congressmen, Democratic congressmen. Now, I don't know if Inter-America does those services for Republicans or not. I haven't confirmed that yet. But Inter-America, believe it or not, is mostly sourced through the Latin America until about 1999. And then they switch over. And most Americans don't know that foreign nationals are administrating the IT equipment, the laptops and BlackBerries of their congressmen and senators. That's usually a surprise to people. But they switch over to Pakistanis in 1999. So the Awans come here. Imran Awan comes here in 1999. Gulen comes here in 1999 to do the soft targeting, opiate targeting of veterans. And it's going to be kind of a replay of, anyway, that's how it's done. It's Anthony Weiner's H-1Bs, and then the EB-5s. They were also using EB-5s. Now, what the New York Film Academy has 3 locations in the U.S.
Try to turn away from the wind a little bit, George.
What's that?
Try to turn away from the wind a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to try to get to a closed area. I'm sorry. It's really windy. Okay, let me move over.
That's good.
I hope you can edit this out. Okay, so it's both EB-5s. These are visas. It's both EB-5s and H-1Bs. And I think there's some other H-1s in there too, but the 2 biggies are H-1Bs and EB-5s. The EB-5 is you're a Saudi sheikh and you're about ready to get arrested for something, or Pakistani ISI. I bring you in if you have $1 million. That's easy. I don't need to do any sponsorship agreements or anything like that. If you're Imran Awan with no money and you're an operative, then I got to write up a little thing about how you're going to make mangoes grow bigger or something. I got to write some kind of USAID cover for what you're doing here in the U.S. Then I put you over to work at Inter-America, and now you're intercepting congressmen's phones, BlackBerries, and laptops. So that's how he did it, and Wiesant was all over it because New York Film Academy was in Broward County, and in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district. And there's a story that already broke in LA about EB5 abuse. So what McCabe did is he sharded it to look like 3 different investigations. So you'll have the EB5 in LA. He was going to shard Wysant to H-1Bs. I broke the H-1Bs here in New York yesterday. I named the name of the guy, which I feel bad about because I needed to kind of deceive somebody a little bit that I care about a lot. And so that was the U.S. case, and that's why Wysant was killed. And I do regret that I didn't get there quicker. And people die in this stuff, unfortunately. But that's what he was working on. And the guy who was the State Department guy, who's really CIA, he's got a arts cover, his Posolico, Posolico, Posolico. I published his LinkedIn. Posolico, you may want to publish this earlier than later, by the way, John. Posolico family is a big construction family on Long Island, big construction family. Anyway, Posolico has been bringing in people ever since he's in the Stratfor papers. You know, it goes all the way back to 2004. So anyway, Posolico is the State Department guy that's pushing the visas through. And he's pushing it through on national security. These people are vital to national security as operatives and intelligence operatives, etc. You know, that's what's happening there.
Who's this guy, Warren Flood?
Well, that's a wink. That's CIA wink. It's I don't know what his real name is. I think it's Posolico, is Warren Flood, but I don't really know. I'm just guessing it's Posolico. But that's a CIA wink is when you create a name that's a funny, like war and flood.
Yeah.
That's how we make money.
Sure.
USAID makes money on floods. So Hillary cracks a dam, and after they take positions in real estate near to build a children's hospital in Faisalabad. So once they take a position and cheat 12 farmers out of their land, now this is Imran Awan's father that does this. His name's Mohammed Shah. They crack the dam, and then, you know, Biden Kerry's at the White House the next day, and Rajiv Shah, the guy who runs, the young kid who runs USAID, is right there to, you know, dole out the USAID. But that's the Warren Flood. So it's not a real name. It's Posolico, I think. I'm not sure. But so Warren Flood, when all this stuff hits, you got to have a cover, okay? And so there's 2 leaks. One is going to be Seth Rich, and the other is going to be Eric Braverman. And nobody has I broke the Braverman story 220 days ago. Just nobody believes me, but it's coming.
Well,
but anyway, now that it's out there, I'll just finish the Warren Flood thing. Now it's out there. I need a cover. So they come up with this Guccifer 2. Now, if you remember Guccifer 1, he was more of a cover for an extortion thing that they did 2 years previously at Sony. They wanted to take out Amy Pascal as the CEO. So McCabe did a deep dive on all her email. And in the email was these off-color jokes about Obama. So what you do is then you throw shade on the thing by saying he also wanted to see George Bush's artwork, you know. But this is the guy who said, Goose 1 is the guy who said, in Romania, supposedly, I would read Hillary's email, and then I would go out in the garden on my lap. You know, he lives in a shack with a laptop. Do you really believe he hacked Hillary? Well, they want you to believe Hillary is a ninny, but she's actually very sophisticated. I have several emails where she's sending people BlackBerry settings. And I'm talking about flag settings for BlackBerry to put things in different folders and so forth, numerical flag settings. She's not the dope that that MWW is trying to purport. MWW is Anthony Weiner's advertising firm, PR firm. So Warren Flood, they come up with Guccifer to explain all these hacks. So the reason, or Guccifer, what they're doing is going around to Hollywood. Tom Nidas is her guy. I know this gets confusing, but Tom Nidus and John Podesta basically work the donation cycle. So Tom Nidus works the investment side in New York with all the bankers for hacking them and then extorting donations from them. And then he works the producers in Hollywood for their hacks. So Nidus goes to Amy Pascal and says, hey, we could really use $500,000 for Hillary for America. And and Amy Pascal says, well, how about 50? It's going to be something like this. It's not this. These aren't exact numbers, but 500,000 was about the right number. I think Katzenberg gives $1 million. You know, Spielberg gives $1 million, somewhere in there. And anyway, oh no, okay. 2 weeks later, you know, something like this. This is going to be the chronology. Something like this. Oops! Here comes all these Sony hacks. And Amy Pascal has to step down because she says all these jokes about Obama. They're looking for anything. McCabe's going to put like 50 agents on this deep dive and find something bad. Okay? And they did. And they got rid of Amy Pascal. And they put their guy in there. Or usually, if they don't get their guy in there, they threaten to do the same thing. But now you got to cover. Now, with Guccifer, you have to cover the first hack, right? So you come up with this cockamamie story about, oh, he also wanted to see George Bush's artwork. Okay. So anyway, he goes to jail in 2014, and he's in jail in 2015 and 16. Now he's in Virginia. He's over in Arlington County, Virginia. I do a show from there. And I say these guys are going to come back as star witnesses because now he's in jail. You can't use him as a cover for all these new hacks because Hillary's running to reelect. The DNC leaks are out there. You got to cover that with a hack. You just hacked the Democratic caucus as well with the Awan brothers on Capitol Hill. You got to cover that hack. Now the Podesta leaks come out after Seth Rich is dead. Now you got to cover that hack. So what do? We're sitting there. Tom Donilon meets with Podesta at the White House along with Robbie Mook. Robbie Mook's a runner in this thing. It's really Donilon and Podesta. They meet on the 26th in the White House. You can check the White House logs. And they set it up. They meet several times. They meet 300 times. But they come up with this, I'm sorry, this is going to be a meeting earlier than that. They meet on the 22nd to set up the Seth Rich murder, 26th. They meet earlier than that before the Seth Rich hack is going to happen between May 25th and the 30th or 31st of May. So anyway, they come up with this Guccifer 2. Well, Guccifer 1's in jail. We can't use Guccifer 1, so rather than come up with a whole new name, let's call him Guccifer 2. We've already pre-sold the American public on Guccifer 1. Let's do Guccifer 2. And we'll say he did the Seth Rich hack. So that's where the whole Russia cockamamie scheme comes in. And then Andy McCabe pays this Steele guy the money to do the Trump dossier, the PP dossier. And then they also say, and this hasn't really come on the news yet, he also did the DCC hack, you know? And then the Podesta leaks come out with Eric Braverman. And then they're going to say Goose 2 did the Podesta leaks. So, you know, he's the goose that got all the gander. You know, he's the goose that can be used. You know, it's a floor wax and a dessert topping. So, I mean, we're going to use Goose 2 to mop up anything that leaks between now and the election, and that's what happened. Now, Hillary pulled just to make sure the original Goose 1 didn't chirp before all this. When the May hack happens, I think they bring Guccifer over from Romania and put him in the Virginia county jail. I can't remember the county, Fairfax County Jail, because you have to put him on ice, right? Because you don't want him saying, hey, you know what, this new Goose 2 isn't really Goose 2. He has nothing to do with me. I don't know him. So now you can say Goose 2 can come out and say, hey, I'm really good buddies with Goose 1. I'm doing this all because of Goose 1. I got a lot of helicopter traffic over me. So that's Warren Flood. Warren Flood writes the memo. I'm sorry, this is a long description, but Warren Flood writes the memo, the first guy. There is a Warren Flood. I don't want you to think there isn't a Warren Flood. He's a CSIS kid. The CSIS is the intelligence community in Canada. And he trains up at either Ryerson or the University of Toronto. I can't remember which. And they bring him down as this young hotshot. He's half Cherokee, half black. They bring him down. Anyway, he's writing this memo of here's what the first leak is going to look like, and he writes it in WordPress. And unfortunately, WordPress drops these metadata of who's the creator of the document and what day it was created. Then it goes to the next person, and I can't remember, somebody else edits it and drops more metadata. And then finally, Guccifer 2 launches this WordPress site. And the first thing they launch because now they have to cover the Seth Rich leak, right? There's going to be, Julian Assange already on the 7th of June has said, we have a lot of stuff. So now they don't know what's coming, so they bring back Guccifer 2. They create this Guccifer 2 guy, and they are waiting to see what comes out. They're going to preempt now. They're going to preempt whatever Julian Assange says right before the convention on the 25th, July 25th I'm talking about. So they release the 5 pages of the Trump op-ed. They say, hey, I got a great idea. Let's have Guccifer 2 push out these 5 pages of op-ed of all the Trump trash, and then we'll get everybody focused on the Trump trash rather than whatever the heck is in those 44,000 documents with 17,761 attachments, right? So the convention happens a little bit later. I think the convention happens, I might have my dates wrong, it may be June 25th. Anyway, the convention happens, and Julian Assange, the day before the convention, comes out with the WikiLeaks. Well, Schumer goes to the airwaves, Chip goes to the airwaves, the Russians. And that's really where the Russian narrative hoax starts. And we're still living in this narrative almost a year later.
Yeah. Well, all right, let me ask you this, George. Let's go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt, especially while you're on a roll here, but I had to.
Sure.
Look, so let's just going with what we know, including some stuff that we think we know and we're pretty sure is true. This is what it sounds like to me. It sounds to me like the Clinton machine wanted to take over the United States government. They had enough pedophilia. Yep. They had enough stuff going on, enough dirt on other people to be able to keep them quiet for a long time. In the meantime, Hildebeest is doing State Department business on a private server. Then, when it looks like Hillary is going to get in trouble for this, and she's pressuring FBI Director Comey to just keep this all cool, just don't. So he comes out with, it's bad news, it's bad, it's terribly bad, and then he goes, well, but there's no prosecutor will take this case. Then the guy comes back out again right before the election and says, yes, it's really bad, but nothing actually ever happens. So do we think that Hillary Clinton, and to a lesser degree Bill Clinton, because certainly if her skeleton holding closets are opened, so will Bill's be opened. Do we think that they are so desperate that they resorted to murder to keep this thing going? Oh, the Russians hacked our election, the Russia WikiLeaks and all that stuff that old bag of pus keeps talking about. There were no Russian leaks. There were no emails released by the Russians. This was done by Seth Rich and probably a couple other people who are probably scared to death right now, but certainly Seth. And we just talked with Liz Crokin yesterday about somebody near and dear to him that may have been in a position to help him with that. And so now you've got this fellow. You got the Awan brothers, okay, and then you've got all that theft that went on in the House of Representatives. All right. So now those guys are on the run. In the meantime, one of them at least has a contract to build routers for computer use, of course. We call them routers, but they're routers. A route is when you drive the remainder of your enemy forces out. That's a route. Okay, it's not Route 66, it's Route 66. So they were building routers. And there is information to suggest that these routers were compromised. And they've got a government contract to do this. In the meantime, this federal prosecutor who was investigating visa and passport fraud cases is 37 years old, right? Barrington J. Wisenant. I guess that's Wisenant. I
call him Wiseant because he's an ant, but he's wise.
Okay, got it.
But anyway, go ahead.
Then.
Yeah.
Fine, that'll work. But remember this name, folks. Barrington J. Wisenant. Okay? He's found in Florida. Looks like he's been busted in the head. They're not sure if he died there in the surf where he was floating or if he was killed somewhere else and dumped in the surf. So you've got Seth Rich is dead. Barrington is dead. Guccifer this, Guccifer that. I think this was a criminal overtaking of the United States government by the Clinton machine, if you will. And I think that they're just rubbing out as many people as possible in furtherance of this. I'll also go you another step further, and it's this. I think these people really are Satan worshipers. I think these people are so rocket. Look, Bill Clinton was basically what you'd call white trash. Hillary Clinton, well, her dad was a lawyer, I believe, but she's not much better. She went immediately to Chicago to hook up with people like Saul Alinsky, okay? They mobilize and they support every element of rabble that they can mobilize in support of their cause. Now, somebody took exception, it was one person took exception to a video I ran yesterday of these idiots at Evergreen College talking about slavery and hey, 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 ho, these racist teachers have got to go. Still holding on to slavery, because what the Clintons have done and what the Democrats do is they harness the ignorant and the stupid. These people are so stupid they do not realize that no one is alive today that has anything to do with slavery whatsoever, but they are so completely consumed with the dumbass that they are not in any way prepared to hey, 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 ho, the ancestors of the people who sold us into slavery, namely our own black brothers, have got to go. Okay, they won't go there. They won't accept the fact that their own people sold them into slavery. This is the kind of people that the ilk of Hillary Clinton and I've already said the word ilk. These are the people that and when 90% of the people do not have the capability to think independently, they have no critical thinking skills, at least not ones that have been developed yet. This is the rabble that is most easily harnessed. Well, looks like Bernie Sanders is going to get the nomination. So then what happens? The leaks come out. The Russians hacked our election. They cost me the presidency. And now that old bag is talking about running again in 2020 because I believe she knows that she and her whole damn crew are going to wind up in orange jumpsuits permanently if they don't keep this going and they don't keep fresh bodies being tossed into the weeds. They're going to have to keep doing what they're doing or they're over with completely. And everybody that has anything to do with them, they're over with too. In the meantime, the general public is, Hillary, and this idiot Kathy Griffin with her simulated beheading of the president and all of this. And and Maxine Waters and all these other people that are out there just beating the drum for impeachment and all this. My opinion is it's because they're criminals and they are scared to death that they're going to be found out. And I want to go back to that thing you said one more time. I want everybody to hear this. What's this deal, this agreement that was made between CIA and FBI one more time? Something 25 or 5 or what was it? Georgi.
John? Yeah, it's PDD 62, Presidential Directive. The difference between an executive order and a presidential decision directive is a presidential decision directive is secret, and it's stored in the National Archives under executive privilege. And I can't remember the executive privilege code is. I think it's an E5.
I wonder if that's among the documents that got spirited out of the National Archives by Clinton operatives.
Oh, no, I got it. I published it about 120 days ago, and I've continually come back about every 30 days and shown PDD 62.
Good. Well, that sort of takes away the restriction on CIA operating within the country, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and the FBI's restriction on operating internationally. So we can basically become a cabal now, or a kind of it's a merger really between the CIA and the counterterrorism. The CTD, they used to call it, but now they call it the CI to make it sound more like intelligence gathering.
All right,
but
then.
Make no mistake, both of these are covert operations. Now, there's a big wall between the FBI field, and I want to make sure that people don't think I'm trying to say that any of this happened with FBI field people. Those are some of my best leads and some of the, really good patriots.
Yeah. All right, now let me ask you this. You see this information. You see the timeline of the release of the information and or the discovery of well, first the discovery and then whatever release of the information, right? You see this timeline.
Yes.
So you've been able to look back a long way. The question is, can you see ahead? Where is this all going to lead eventually? And what are the potential roadblocks to a sufficiently large release that will result in prosecution?
Well, I think you have to convince the folks at Bilderberg that it's better that they just take the lumps now and just do the metadata now and let everybody, say, okay, we're going to get rid of Schiff and Schumer and whatnot. And you wouldn't even have to do that. You just release the Hillary documents and then it'll take the hot off the boil. You know what I mean? Just put out the Hillary documents, just the metadata, so that everybody can see, okay, Huma is a bad person, deport her, Anthony Weiner's involved, okay, whatever, give him immunity or whatever, however many, but just get the information out so that it stops the wolf, all these people searching. And that's my best solution, because Hillary's got Jeffrey Epstein's airplane. They could put the whole crew on the airplane and fly to Casablanca tomorrow. They've gotten $28 million from the King of Morocco to provide safe harbor, no extradition treaty. They have all got property in Casablanca. They could do the same thing in Nigeria. They could do the same thing in 10 different countries. So Hillary going to jail is kind of a pipe dream, to be honest with you. But the data does need to be exposed, otherwise, and the Awan brothers need to be cleaned out. The American public's not going to be comfortable anymore without all the Awan brothers' hacks exposed. So that means the Democratic caucus hacks, that means the DNC leaks, that means we already have Podesta leaks and we already have the Seth Rich leaks, but the Huma server, the 650,000 that Trump called the treasure trove, that's got to be released. At least the metadata.
All right. Let's say that they do that. You're talking blowback containment here. But what about where will they go? Based on what you have seen, what will their next step? They obviously want to control the U.S. government. They obviously want an authoritarian regime.
That's over. What you're going to have is kind of a church committee. They'll start a church committee, which is run by somebody like Frank Church, who really is serious. You'll start up a parallel committee in the Senate. Whatever happens in the House, you're going to start a parallel committee in the Senate to try to stay up with the evidence. You'll hire a Hillary to steal the documents from the House committee to push them over to the Senate committee. Sort of what they did with the Rockefeller Commission. The Rockefeller Commission is created to kind of be the Senate overshadower of the church committee. Although Frank's, and maybe the other way around, maybe Frank's church was a senator from Idaho, so maybe I've got that backwards. But anyway, you get the idea that you have you infiltrate that committee and you get documents. You get Hillary to copy I'm going back to the Watergate investigation, but you get somebody to copy the documents every night. And then you come out with your findings and you come out with your workarounds of what you think it is. So you got a parallel investigation going. Now, that's not going to stop the carnage. There's still going to be reforms and there's still going to be people lose their job and so forth. But this is what's going to happen. A church committee type of situation is next step. That's the only recovery from this to get the public's trust back.
Have you discovered anything that suggests a direct threat? I don't mean something done by the lame media. I'm talking about a direct threat against this president.
Yes, that's the Kim.com thing. That's the Pompeo thing. So apparently, if you believe the Pompeo story in New Zealand, Comey goes down there with McCabe to meet with Five Eyes. The reason why you want the Five Eyes being New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and British intelligence services. And the reason why you meet with them is you want them to validate. You want to hit whatever you say the next day with a validation stamp and go, I've never worked with a finer intelligence professional than James Comey, that kind of thing. But everybody has to be ready to go with the cameras when you do this. But then you come out and you say, whatever it is, we're going to say Trump, leaked information or did something, and he needs to be impeached. We need to call for impeachment. Then they're going to go around the Five Eyes and say, we need Senate committee. Now Bob Mueller's the special counsel. Bob Mueller's going to call all the conspirators. So So all the Five Eyes come out, stamp it, and now we we make a big public hearings, just like Watergate, and you bring in Kim.com, and he says, I knew Seth Rich, blah, 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 and that's a nothing burger. But really, it was the Russians, so there's going to be some kind of coaching or whatever. They're going to bring back the Russia narrative. That was the plan, supposedly, they discussed in New Zealand. Now, the only problem is Mike Pompeo is in the same meeting from CIA, and he's supposedly playing along with this, with the meeting in Ken.com. Supposedly, he's recording this. Now, I have a lot of intelligence contracts that are overseas. I'm sorry, I'm at the pier, so I get the background noise. Overseas, but I don't have... Well, actually, that's not true. I got some intelligence contracts in contacts in the U.S. as well, but they're not as good as the ones I have overseas. But supposedly what happens is Pompeo records it, this conspiracy between McCabe and Comey. So as soon as he finds out that information, he wires it back to Washington, SCIF, secured communications, but then Comey is fired while he is away in L.A. giving a speech. His office is ransacked. They collect all the information. They've got the whole rat line now. Now, they can take McCabe out, I think, anytime they want. But I believe there's some negotiations going on back and forth now about trying to keep McCabe. So that's the whole overthrow. The overthrow was have this, Lindsey Graham and McCain come out and say, this is just one, hurdle too far. I have to go along with impeachment. My moral crisis is such that I have to, vote for impeachment. And if it got to the Senate, but the House would be fairly quick in getting the required votes to impeach, and then the Senate you'd have all these, hand-wringing, but then they would impeach Trump and put in Pence. So it was going to be a soft coup. It wasn't going to be a blood coup or a wet coup. But now it's looking like the conspiracy is falling apart because McCabe, I believe, was in that same New Zealand meeting. He might not have been. So now blood coup becomes much more realistic, and this is easily done with a fence jumper at the White House. Secret Service just looks the other way, and there's a fence jumper that's supposed to try some doors. Tries the one door that gets in and goes into the bedroom and shoots Trump. So, or there's a million other ways, obviously, but that's the fence jumper is the one that the public seems to accept. That for some reason somebody can climb an 8-foot fence in the most electronically surveilled space in the United States.
Sure, they're already cranking the narrative out.
And be there 15 minutes to try every door on the outside.
Yeah. Oh, brother.
Yeah.
All right, well.
And there's really no defense. There's no defense against that. So.
Yeah, I think there is. Send somebody a message. But that's just me. George, I've enjoyed this very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate. I really appreciate your coming to us first like this. I really do. And it's not like we're trying to cast our wonderfulness into just this really, really sharp and tight relief for everybody. But we do like to be on it. And certainly, you got your hands full with everything that you do. It'd be totally impossible for us to assemble this kind of information on our own. We have to have contact with persons like yourself, and so far, I mean, you're one of a kind, pal. You really are, and I thank you very much for coming on the program and breaking this stuff. It's great.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Now, I had a little issue with Podesta's boys yesterday in Brooklyn.
Really?
So don't sit on this forever because just don't sit on it too long. When does this air?
About 10 o'clock tonight.
Okay, great. I'll be listening. Thanks, John.
What about the run-in with Podesta's boys before you go? What happened?
Oh, you'll see it. If you want to see the whole thing yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I'm in the hotel. They closed down the stairs shaft. They closed down the elevator. The elevator guy comes in. I start to go down the elevator, and we're stopping at every floor. There was problems with the elevator. I think, oh, shit, this guy's giving the, SEIU guy the keys. The only reason I suspected it is these two guys from, huge guys come in right on my shoulder when I'm checking in to see what room I'm in, and then they leave. They say they had rooms, and they say, well, we changed their mind. We want to see the room first. And the get out there is, I want to see the room, and the room sucks, and I'm leaving. So they were just there to see where I was. Well, so they're not in the hotel, right? So then the next day, when the elevators are screwed up, I get out of the elevator because it's going to be stopping on every floor with the elevator guy. I come back out. I'm waiting. The door opens, and it's the same two guys that were on my shoulder the day before when I checked in. These guys who had supposedly left the hotel, and they're monsters, right? So I said, hey, you know what, guys? You take the next elevator. So there is a little bit of a time boundness to this interview. I don't know at any, you know what I mean?
I do.
I'm not on Possess's favorite list,
Oh, boy. Well, he's not on our favorite list either. Matter of fact, he's on the brown
make
list.
Copies. Yeah.
Yeah, there's only one way to get off of that.
Yeah, make copies if you can.
All right.
Okay.
Well, God bless you. Thank you so much, George. Stay healthy and stay in touch, all right?
I will do. Thanks, John. Bye-bye.
Well, Rod, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today here in this Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of the weekend. Now, as you know, George and I have been involved in a crowdsourced investigation that didn't actually start with Seth Rich. But the interesting thing about the crowdsource is that it always sort of leads you to where the most important information is.
Yeah, that's it, sure.
And right now we're on Seth Rich, and I was really particularly interested in seeing the way the media treated you, because it's another focus of what I'm doing is examining the media. Can you talk about that a little bit, the whole assault on you directly after you went on to Fox?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been with Fox News now for about 12, 13 years as a crime analyst, talking about everything from San Bernardino to the Pulse nightclub shooting, these types of crimes, right? And so when I went on Fox to talk about the Seth Rich case, it's not the first time I had been on Fox talking about the Seth Rich case.
Oh, really?
I was on Fox and Friends back in October of last year, and I did what we call a walk and talk. I walked the scene on Flagler Street, and I looked at the crime scene from the perspective, what if this were a botched robbery? And interestingly enough, guys, back then, I actually believed it could have been a botched robbery. I mean, I could see how that could be. Right. And that was the narrative that the police department was saying at the time. They believed it was a botched street robbery.
Still saying that, aren't they?
They're still saying that. And so, back in October, I agreed. So when the family brought me on board, and you can stop me if I'm going too far ahead.
No, please.
But when the family brought me on board, and again, I can't talk anything about the investigation itself.
We understand.
Because I have what I call a shut up order. That's what it is. A shut up. Don't say anything.
And I want to talk about that in a minute.
But when the family brought me on board back in March of this year, right? They brought me on board to investigate a murder, which is what I like to say I do best. I had no clue at the time, believe it or not, about the relationships that Seth had with the DNC or WikiLeaks and the email thing and the Russian hacking. I have never followed that. I mean, I've heard about it, sure, but I haven't really followed it. So I didn't put two and two together in terms of whatever I find in this death investigation or murder investigation is going to have some effect on the WikiLeaks thing and the Russian hacking. I wasn't focused on that at all. And that's and I've always said that because that was the truth. I'm focused on who were the bad guys. So I began the investigation. When you begin a murder investigation specifically, I always like to say you have three doors to go. This is what I used to teach rookies, as a matter of fact, rookie detectives. You have three doors to go into when you do an investigation. The first door is whether or not this was just a street crime, a botched robbery as in this case. So you want to work that possibility, right? The second door is whether or not this person's death is the result of relationships gone bad, lovers triangle, boyfriend on the side, girlfriend, those things happen quite often, right? But then the third door that you go in is the door that's related to that person's employment and relationships as it applies to his job. So I worked extensively through door number one, okay? I mean, I talked to some of the, what I like to call knuckleheads on the street. Did anybody see anything? Tell me, that kind of stuff. You're hitting the ground running, right? Then I started looking at door number two, personal relationships. And again, I can't go into detail, but I would encourage your viewers and others to talk to the bar manager at Capone. I think his name is Joe Capone. He'll tell you, I spent most of the time that I talked to him talking about relationships that Seth could have had. We even joked about it. I said, did Seth have 2 or 3 girls on the side? I mean, you have to ask those kind of
You
questions.
never
You know
know.
what I mean? And then even with Seth's girlfriend, Kelsey, we spent most of our time talking about their relationship. I never asked a word about emails because it wasn't my focus.
And is she living in D.C. or she's in Omaha at this point?
D.C.
Okay.
You mean during the time of the murder?
Yeah.
No. During the time of the murder, she was in Omaha, but
see.
she's living in D.C. now.
And they had that 89-minute phone call.
Right, I can't go into details.
Sorry.
I can't go into details.
Got it.
But that's not the only phone call you are aware of. There's other telephone calls,
Yes,
but that's
yes.
huge in this investigation.
Agreed.
So now I'm at door number 3 because I don't find anything in door number 1. I don't find anything to support a relationship gone bad or lover's triangle. I don't find that in door number 2.
Right.
Okay, so what a detective will do now is say, okay, well, let's look at job relationships. Maybe there's something going on with the supervisor. You know, sometimes people have problems with supervisors. It's really a terrible, toxic situation, and then maybe one winds up shooting and killing. Who knows? Anything is possible.
Maybe Amy Dacey or someone
So
like
I
that.
started looking at job-related.
Right.
And now I'm starting to get pushback from certain people. Don't dig. Don't go any further. Don't look in door number 3.
Right.
And you know what I mean? You can look in door number 1, look in door number 2 all you want. Don't look in door number 3. Well, wait a minute. What's behind door number 3?
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
Sure. Yes.
And that's where we stopped.
See, one of the things that really intrigues us is that today, Joe Biggs, I'm sure you saw, came out with an FBI document that has basically been shown to be fake, most people would say. It's very curious that the FBI would even be involved in the investigation of a civilian, because working for the DNC, that's a private organization. It's not a government organization.
That's correct.
Seth is not a federal employee, and there's no interstate aspect to his murder. So why would the FBI be involved in this at all?
Well, there's only one scenario where I can think that the FBI would have been involved. And that is, based on my experience as a detective here in D.C., sometimes meaning the D.C. Police Department, our IT department can't get into certain types of electronic devices.
I see.
And so the FBI, they have the resources to get into or crack into, whatever you want to call it, into certain types of devices. So what we would do, they wouldn't be so much involved in the investigation. They would just help us get into that data that's a part of that computer.
Forensic
so I can
examination.
see how that can happen. I mean, that happens all the time. Matter of fact, on the state level, many states have Bureau of Criminal Investigations on the state level. And believe it or not, local police departments rely on the BCI units, state, to help them with those types of electronic investigations.
That's a good explanation. So the FBI could be involved. And obviously you can't talk about any information related to the laptop or the phone other than what you said already, which is they wouldn't give you access to it.
No access, that's right.
Would that also be true for lab information or DNA testing, that type of thing?
It depends on the jurisdiction. Now, D.C. has its own DNA laboratory over at 1D, and it's state-of-the-art, so they do their own. And they
Metro PD, you're saying?
Yeah, Metropolitan Police Department, D.C., yeah.
119 D Street.
Yeah, and they had it back then, so they would have done their own DNA testing.
And when you're talking about knuckleheads, Brandon Warren, is that a knucklehead you can talk with us about, or?
No.
Okay. But he's a real person, or can't even talk about that?
I've heard of the name, but other than that, I don't know much about him.
Haven't spoken to him. Okay, that's interesting. Because George obviously spent quite a bit of time with Joe Capone and has done some reporting on that.
Yeah, I spent about 4 days there, and I saw Joe every day. And I'm more the Columbo type, where I ask, 5, 6 questions and then have a glass of wine and then ask a couple more. And, I had read all the reports. And there was a Daily Mail article about it saying that he was somehow there and feeling Seth felt depressed. And I didn't know if that was secondhand information or firsthand information. And then there was this report that he had been put into a cab maybe, and there was other accounts that said he had walked. And so I did what you did. I walked the whole, all the way down to Flagler, took a couple of different routes, but I mainly went down, Georgia to Harvard. A couple different routes you can take, but it's quite a walk. It's like about a 40-minute walk.
Yeah.
And then he had a previous address at 122, I'm going to forget the address, but it was much closer, his previous address. and I walked in about 8 minutes. So I was thinking, well, if he really did live there, 122, and I'm just spacing on the street, but it was this much shorter walk. I mean, did he really live at 2113 First Street? I mean, it just seemed like there wasn't any footprints or any metadata that actually said he lived at 21. And I realize you can't answer or talk about the investigation, but that's the first thing that struck me in doing exactly what you did with door number 1, just walking the shoes of the victim.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was kind of that got me. And then there was this period of time also from the shot shooter or whatever the shooting system from 4:20
Shot spotter.
Shot spotter, yeah, from 4:20 a.m. to the 5:59 call of death. There was several articles that came out that said his parents were there. There was another article that said Aaron, the brother, was there. He was sitting up talking. There was another article that came out from supposedly written by a fourth-year surgery or intern that said he had been shot once, third lobe of the liver, and that was still in there. And then that was just an entry wound, and then there was an exit entry and exit wound through the abdomen, and 12 centimeters had been resected, and he seemed stable, and the guy had seen 25 of those or 30 of them, and no one had ever died in that situation. So
has anyone seen the autopsy report?
Well, that's what we were going to ask you.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Neither have we.
No, I haven't been given access to the autopsy report.
And how often does that happen in a murder investigation?
It doesn't happen. I mean, the autopsy report for a detective is, I always used to say, is the Bible, because you're going to learn so much about the victim. The toxicology report is part of the autopsy report. That's important when you're doing a murder investigation, right? I'm talking to victim now, right?
Yeah.
Entry and exit wounds, all kinds of things you learn from the autopsy report. And again, I can't go into detail, but all I would say is every investigation I've ever done, murder investigation or death investigation, you always ask, step 1, let me see a copy of the autopsy report. But I want to go back to door 1.
Okay.
Okay, because it's interesting, door 1. Let's say this were a botched robbery.
Yeah.
Okay? And you have to look at all possibilities,
Absolutely,
right?
sure.
So police officers, we get the call, shot spotter, sounds of gunshots, 21st and Flagler, I need a unit. This is what the dispatcher says, okay?
Sure.
So you got units responding, okay? I'm going dispatcher, 318, I'm going, whatever the number is, right? So the officers get on the scene. If we see that, and this is any murder investigation, I'm not just talking about this particular case, but this is the way it works, right? You get on the scene, your victim is still alive and talking, right? The first thing you ask that victim as a uniformed officer, we train officers this, who shot you? Who shot you? Chicago, with the number of shootings they have, I guarantee you every time a cop rolls up on the scene, that's the first thing you want to ask that victim, because you don't know if that victim's going to die or not.
Right.
Who shot you, man? This is what you say.
That could be solving the crime right there.
Well, that's why you ask, you know? Or if you don't find out who shot you, what did they look like?
Right.
So we can give what we call a lookout.
Right.
Okay? This is protocol for any shooting situation. So the first unit's on the scene, get that lookout, and you broadcast it over the air. I want to know in this investigation, I want a copy of the audible transmission from the lookout. They had to have a lookout.
Have you communicated with any of the responding officers?
No.
You haven't. And obviously no one's had access to the body cam footage or anything like that.
No, that's right.
See, the thing is, I don't want any of us here to be accused of being conspiracy theorists or anything like that. So I really liked your answer to the FBI question, because that's a sensible answer that provides a logical alternative that debunks what most people would say about why the FBI might or might not be involved. So it brings me back to these questions like, I mean, even the cease and desist order that you've gotten from the family. Now, that's specifically about talking about the case. Are you still investigating the case, or are you just ceasing and desisting from everything?
Right. Cease and desist basically from everything.
So you're fired. You're not investigating it anymore.
Right. Not investigating it on behalf of the family. Anyone can investigate any case they want. But on behalf of the family, no, I'm not investigating it for them. And the cease and desist, like I said, I consider that a shut the hell up order.
Right.
Don't say a word. Don't tell anybody. Because what I want to do, and issued a statement. I don't know if you guys saw the statement that
I'm not sure.
released about a week ago, and I'm asking the family to allow me to release my investigative report to the world.
Yeah, of course.
I want the world to see it. I mean, I want them to see what I have. Because if people see what I have in my report, if you take the political motivation out of it, out of the equation, then you're going to say, oh, it makes sense why he thinks this.
Right.
I mean, that's what most normal people would say.
I think
you know what I mean?
Sure. I think
but
so.
take the political stuff out of it.
Right.
It just seems a little bit odd that, for instance, I believe that there was 2 meetings at each hospital that Seth Rich is shot in between. There's a meeting at the Howard University Hospital, which is a trauma center as well, and then there's the MedStar up on the hill. So Howard at the bottom to the left, W Street going west, and I was on my hands and knees at that corner of W and Flagler looking straight ahead, and you can almost see MedStar on a direct line. And so he has to go to one of those 2 hospitals. What I find amazing is that people won't say which hospital he went to.
Oh, he went to MedStar.
He went to MedStar, so we can't confirm that he went to MedStar. Now, he never spent any time at Howard at all. Never.
Not from what I know, he didn't.
Okay.
And it kind of makes sense that he would go to MedStar in that area. That's the hospital of choice that we usually take shooting victims to. Between Howard and MedStar, we typically take them to MedStar. Now, Howard has what we call a crash unit as well, and they're pretty good with gunshot victims. But in that case, where that shooting happened at, I think it would have been better to go to MedStar.
Did you speak to the attending physician at all?
No.
Do you know who that was?
No, I don't.
This is an interesting sort of confusion surrounding the doctor, whether it's Dr. Sava, Dr. Altelyevich, or if that's the same person operating under 2 different names.
Oh, I see. No, I have no idea.
Okay.
I have a social security number with Sava with those 2 names, and some people change their name. You know, he's from let's say Hungary, and he wants to be more American, so he changes his name to Sava, maybe, or maybe it's just simpler for people to say. You know, so there may be reasons why.
Right.
But a lot of aliases as well, and that that he kind of gives you pause, like maybe why is that going on, and just why the secrecy? Why not just say I was the sometimes on I remember when Gabby Giffords was shot, there was almost hourly reporting by the phisian talking about here's her CAT scan, and we're going to go in here. It was a miracle that we saved her life.
That's right.
And it's been a lot of cases like that where the doctors have been very open with the information. So you just wonder why in this situation it's so closed down.
You don't know.
There's so many things like that just make you wonder why this is happening. And, it's just very confusing, and it leaves people, I think that's what leads people to this whole conspiracy theory kind of idea. To me, that's a real hot button word. Because when someone says, oh, well, Rod Wheeler is promoting a conspiracy theory that's been debunked, my first question is, well, how has it been debunked?
Right.
Where is your evidence that is stronger than his evidence that shows that he is saying something incorrect? And none of that has come forward as far as we can see.
It hasn't come forward.
It's very odd.
And I haven't walked back anything. As a matter of fact, in the statement that I released a week ago, I said then in my statement in writing that I do believe that there was some communication between Seth and WikiLeaks.
And we believe the same.
I believe that based on common sense, first of all, you know what I mean? I guess I'm a practical person. Based on common sense and, from information that we're getting from various sources. Now, does that mean that I know for a fact that that happened? Absolutely not.
Right.
But I believe that to be the case.
So I don't want you to give away any of the investigation because you've got this gag order, but can you say there was a lot of, I think in your statement, something about there was, some email going back and forth between somebody from WikiLeaks and Seth Rich. Can you confirm that? Is that true? Or
well, the information, guys, that I got about the source, which was an FBI federal investigator, right? That was a source that was developed by the Fox News Channel reporter, Malia Zimmerman, okay? Her and I communicated, and I'll never forget when she called me, right? Thing is, I have nothing to hide, so you know what I mean? So I'll tell you what happened, right? And if I screwed up, say, Roger, you screwed up, right? When she called me, She said, Rod, we got this new information that there's this FBI guy, a former FBI guy, a federal investigator, and he said he knows for a fact that emails went from Seth's computer to WikiLeaks. And you know what I asked her? And she'll tell you. I said, is this guy credible? That's what I asked her. She said, he's very credible. And I said, and that's confirmed. She said, it's confirmed. Okay. Well, that's what I rolled with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And just to finish that off and don't give anything away, but Gavin McFadden was the recipient.
Right.
Yeah. So that is confirmed. Okay.
And so she was going to come out in the form of a report on that Tuesday, right? This was a Monday. Well, it was a Monday when she called me and confirmed this to me. I hadn't seen the report. So I'm basing everything I was saying off of the telephone conversation that her and I had. And that was the extent of it. I had never talked to this guy. I never said I talked to the guy.
Yeah.
I don't know who the guy is.
It was very clear to
me,
me, just from listening to what you said and the way you were criticized, that this was fake news hitting you with a smear campaign.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, and this is all verifiable. As soon as I got that news from Malia, guess who I called? The police department.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, isn't this what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
And you know what? I talked to the detective. I said, look, I got this new information. I think we can crack the case. I'm thinking about a murder. I'm sorry.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
He'll tell you. And I called him right away and shared. He said, okay, Rod, thanks. We'll get right on it.
And this is a guy that you know from your years on the force?
No. This is the guy investigating the case now.
Okay.
He wasn't there when I was there.
I see.
And then I picked up the phone and I called Joel Rich. The father.
Yeah.
This is all verified. I'll show you the phone records. I don't have anything to hide. You look at all the phone records. You see everybody else I called.
Right.
I called Joel Rich and I said, Joel, guess what? We just got this information, this FBI. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, what do you think? I said, it sounds like it's pretty good. Whoever this FBI guy is.
Right.
I said, but I think Fox News is going to do a story on it tomorrow. I just want you to be aware. He said, okay, Rod, no problem. Great job.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
I mean, yeah.
And then I called Aaron.
The brother.
Yeah. To let him know. Now, he wasn't as happy about it.
He seems very strange in the interview as well.
When I shared this, I was excited. I'm thinking maybe this is the lead that we need, the witness we need to crack this case. We can finally get the murderers. This is what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking we can confirm.
Right.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
So I call Aaron and we're having this conversation. And again, I can't go into a whole lot of details, but I'll tell you one thing I said to him at the end of that conversation. I said, Aaron, and I said it just like this. I said, let me ask you, man, are you all right? He said, what do you mean? I said, do you really want this case solved? He said, Rod, just do what you want to do. Click, and hung up the phone. Because I asked him that because he wasn't acting right to me. If it's your loved one, and I tell you, I think we know who did it or whatever, you go, oh, great, go get him, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to say, well, wait a minute, don't go any more into door number 3. You're not going to say that.
So do you think that's because there's some outside pressure being put on the family, or you can't speculate?
I don't want to speculate. I could speculate, but I don't want to speculate because I'll be clobbered. But I have some ideas.
Now, we've heard a lot that, sorry, George, we've heard a lot that, things have been said from the family. And is that actually coming from the family, or is that coming from this PR firm that's representing the family?
In my opinion, I think it's coming from the PR firm that's representing the
Do you know the name of that firm?
Well, I know it's Brad Bauman. Yeah. But I also know that my relationship with Joel and Mary was great. I think they're wonderful people. Joel and Mary wants this case solved.
Of course.
They do.
Of course.
I can't say that for anyone else. But
it's very strange.
The relationship, Joel gave me information that I'm pretty sure others in his family would not have wanted him to give to me. But see, that's because he wants the case solved.
Of course.
Sure, exactly. So just to nail down the details, you can share metadata, you can't share the details. You called the D.C. police detective. Can you share that name of who you called?
No, I could, but I don't want to right now.
Okay.
I'd have to get clearance from my attorney.
Yeah. Okay.
Careful,
No,
you know what I mean?
Well, then there's 2 rumors out there floating around, and I just wondered if you could debunk either one of them. One of them said that the family was talking to Seth Rich, and he was sitting up at the hospital.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
You didn't get involved until well after.
Right, yeah, I don't know
because
about that.
I've heard different things from different people. And the other one was that Aaron was there talking to him while he was sitting up at the hospital.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't believe that to be the case, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, and then the last one was if no autopsy, and we actually have had our folks, with the email that you can send for any homicide in the D.C. area, law requires an autopsy, so we requested that, and then there's Judicial Watch has requested a lot of the documents with Tom Fitton, the phone and the laptop, and so forth. So that's proceeding. I think maybe ACLJ, not ACLU, but also American Justice and Law Center is doing some FOIAs for this. That may help in your investigation, I'm not sure. But the other question I had was, do you know if the family signed off on any kind of consent form for his internal organs? That happens a lot with shooting.
Sure, I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah. I never asked that question.
So they haven't, okay.
And have you seen any information that would lead you to believe that Joe Capone has some sort of relationship with Bob Creamer or has ever dealt with him?
No, I haven't.
So I want to bring it around a little bit closer to what George has been investigating. And I know you've probably been looking at some of the work that we've been doing together since we started talking. So you're probably familiar with Imran Awan and the Awan brothers, the Pakistani ISI infiltration of the IT department at Congress. None of that came into play in your investigation, I presume?
No, it did not.
Anything you want to ask about that, George?
Well, now this is taking you into this world of WikiLeaks, and the first thing I guess is interesting is if which you have confirmed, thank you very much, that Seth Rich did email Gavin McFadden, and there was an interplay between them.
From the information that I got from the Fox News reporter who had the FBI source.
So
Can you characterize that traffic? Was it a casual once or twice, or was there quite a bit?
I don't know. Okay. Remember, it was on that Monday evening when she called me and told me this new information. Okay. I hadn't read it in the report. Really? Yeah, and this was a source she had developed.
Okay.
And I just asked, was it credible? Yes. Is it confirmed? Yes. Okay. And I just ran with it, but I didn't, I don't even know the guy's name. I don't know what the guy I never talked to the guy.
Yeah. George is very focused on metadata, and there is metadata to indicate a huge data traffic spike on July the 7th.
Yeah, 3 days before he dies, there's two Russians that somehow have access to metadata of a large data transfer from the DNC, where Seth worked, to the Clinton Foundation in New York. And that's not necessarily important. It seems very far afield, but there are reports that his boss, Amy Dacey, had some kind of argument about whether that data should be released or not. Then there's this meeting the day before with Joe Capone and Bob Creamer at the White House. It almost seems like maybe there's a cause and effect there, and with Seth being very upset about Hillary potentially moving money or data from his favorite candidates, were the Bernie-crats like myself, over to the Hillocrats. So there are many people who believe that the state of the mind of the person before they died, very important. What is his motive? And that his motive was, we're getting railroaded here, and I want to prove that this money is being moved over. So many people have speculated, and we don't know yet, but we do have the two Russians that were expelled because they said it was a Russian report. So again, it's speculative here,
sure.
But that there was this transfer. So we don't know if Seth was performing that transfer or he was reacting to someone else moving that data up to the Clinton Foundation.
Certainly interesting, though, the timing.
But the two Russian analysts, do say it moved a very large, unusual amount of traffic, like more than 10 times, from the DNC to the Clinton Foundation, which seems odd, just oddity, anomaly.
Have you ever heard of something called NGP Van? Does that mean anything to you?
No.
Okay, that's related.
What is it?
Well, it's the software database that was used for voter information tracking by the DNC, and it seems to be related to this data spike and possibly something Seth Rich might have been interested in, certainly something WikiLeaks would have been interested in.
If you were trying to prove what I just said, which is they're taking the money away from the Bernie-crats and giving it to the Hillary-crats, you could use this software, this VAN software, to prove that. You could say, oh, this is a long set of conversations. Let's say we had 5 or 6 emails that we exchanged, and then, you know, Rod Wheeler said, oh, we're going to give $5,000 to the DNC. If then that showed up later as a $5,000 donation to the Hillary, then you could say, whoa, these two things don't mix and match. So there is some chatter within the WikiLeaks, Gavin McFadden being in WikiLeaks UK, that's exactly the kinds of conversations that he was having, saying, here's what I need.
I see.
Coaching him and saying, here's what I need to prove, almost down to the zip code level. Now, that's obviously speculation on my part, just knowing Gavin McFadden and his journalism school that he had. So that's why I asked the characterization of how much traffic and email
went back and forth.
We
didn't go into detail at all. Matter of fact, I didn't even know the number of emails because the local Fox 5 reporter, Marina Morocco, the one that wasn't supposed to break that story that night.
Yeah.
And she wasn't. I don't know if you ever have heard that before, but she wasn't supposed
Didn't know
to
that.
break. Yeah, it was just going to be a teaser because we wanted Fox News to break the story the next day if they were going to break the story. I just kind of called myself sharing some information I had just heard with Marina, and she said she was just going to do a teaser. She wound up making it an exclusive
Because that was just a local affiliate, not the main.
Right, but it blew up.
Right,
yeah, of course.
So anyway, that's kind of what happened with that whole process in terms of how the information got out. But yeah, I didn't have any detail in terms of what this FBI informant had told the Fox News reporter, Malia. I had no detail because, see, I was in my car when she called me.
Sure.
And I was on my way to Fox, as a matter of fact, to do a show called Making Money with Charles Payne. We were going to talk about MS-13 that day.
Oh, really?
At 6 o'clock.
That's interesting.
So I was on my way downtown, D.C. anyway when she called, so I wasn't at my computer. And so I'm on the phone listening to her. We canceled that segment that day. But I stayed downtown and had dinner at a restaurant called Art and Soul, and Marina came to the restaurant and got a 30-second clip from me, and that was the exclusive story.
Oh, wow. That's what she led with that night.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30
made the news story, yeah.
Changed your life.
It's crazy.
Now, Rod, did the death of Sean Lucas come into your investigation at all? And what, do you have any thoughts about that you can share with us?
I have thoughts, yes, for the first part, no for the second part. I do have some thoughts about Sean Lucas's death.
Yeah, we've been very sort of fascinated by the idea that Sean Lucas, Gavin McFadden, John Jones, Michael Ratner, Seth Rich all died within a proximity of 2 or 3 months, some of them being in their 20s, and all of them being related, either directly or indirectly, through WikiLeaks, DNC data, and all of this whole thing. There's not really anything you can tell us about that.
I can't go into detail right now about that. Hopefully at some point I will be able to. But I will tell you this. On March 31st, I did a local Fox 5 show that morning, live on the set.
This year.
I had just started the investigation, and I shared with the anchor on the air that I'm uncovering somewhat of an underground, organized crime ring. I said this on the air.
That's the next thing we want to ask you about.
Above and beyond the Seth Rich murder. And the anchor at the time, Allison Seymour is her name. She said, well, can you talk a little bit more about that, Rod? I said, I can't. I said, but I'm just finding some things that's really making me a little uncomfortable. And that's what you just named, with all those names, that's what I was finding.
And was SEIU involved in that criminal syndicate at all?
Not as far as I knew at that time.
Are we going to get killed for having this interview with you? Because a lot of our viewers are emailing us that might happen.
Well, there is another thing that happens is that the police chief, Lanier, I think it's Kathy Lanier?
Kathy Lanier.
Yeah,
I know Kathy.
She seems to have a very strong relationship with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She seems to have a strong relationship with Amy Dacey, the boss of Seth Rich, and
a little bit of a checkered past on the force. We were reading an article today from a local paper that said there were a lot of sort of disgruntled officers who left under her command. Can't talk about that, it looks like.
Well, yeah, I didn't work under Kathy, but I was in the academy with Kathy. So I've been knowing Kathy for years.
Really?
And she's always been a very nice person. I've never seen anything that would indicate anything wrong that she's done or questionable. I haven't.
Well, we're not saying questionable. It's just the facts in the article stated that the officer roles were really dwindling under her, and that a lot of officers were leaving the force.
Some were. I wouldn't say a lot, but there were some.
Yeah, okay.
She had some disputes with certain commanders that, you know, I know a lot of the officers said, wow, you know, that's kind of crazy, and went to other departments. But I don't know anything specific in terms of that. I have heard some things, and I don't want to say, I'll tell you later, but I have heard some things. I wouldn't repeat it now on camera because I can't verify it. And I don't want to just speculate.
Of course.
But I will share with you what I heard later after the cameras are off.
Okay. So there are some emails in the WikiLeaks from John Podesta, especially, not the first set of WikiLeaks, which is happening somewhere between May 25th is the last email, and then June 12th or 13th, somewhere in there. That's Seth Rich might be the person that gave those. But there's a second set that come out in October 7th time frame that he certainly couldn't have given because they have later time frames after his death. So there is a second person. Now there's a guy. There are several emails in those Podesta leaks that say we need to make an example out of someone. Just some things that, you know, call out who is the leaker, and then Podesta responds, Eric Braverman. So it would lead you to believe that there was some state of mind that there was someone else other than. Then there's an ambassador from UK. His name's Craig Murray. He flies over here, tries to get in the country on the 6th of September. That doesn't work, and then he comes in, I think, for a speech at American University around September 22nd, 23rd. He says he goes to the back of American University, a wooded area, and gets a thumb drive from somebody from the DNC and WikiLeaks. So putting one and one together, you know, maybe WikiLeaks leaker 2 knows WikiLeaks leaker 1.
Did any of these guys come into the investigation?
No, not in my investigation.
Yeah. So he's still alive. I don't know how much longer.
Craig Murray.
Yeah, Craig Murray.
Well, and Eric Braverman, we don't know. That was the start of George's investigation, is where is this guy, Eric Braverman?
So no one can find him?
Well, he's never had a public appearance. There's been a couple of tweets that said, oh, Eric Braverman's going to run the Google Foundation, but that isn't really like going out and getting a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You know?
George has been to Yale investigating, you know, seminars he's supposed to be giving that are mysteriously rescheduled. I went to an apartment that was supposedly his apartment that seemed like an apartment I didn't want to knock on the door of. So there's a lot of mystery surrounding him. There's one other name I want to ask you about. Did someone by the name of Wingate Robinson come into the investigation at all?
One of the officers, I guess there's a moped officer that first comes to see a woman, and then there's this Mr. Officer Wingate Robinson comes there, and then there's 3 of the officers have body cams and 2 don't.
I've heard of that, yeah. But I was told that no one knows where the body cam video footage is.
How common is that, would you say?
It's not common at all. This is the police department of a major city. I can see it if we were in, you know, small town Iowa somewhere. We're talking a major city. You lose the video camera for everybody?
It's very strange. And, you know, something that I'm sure you're familiar with, having been on the force and everything, I see a lot of parallels in the mysterious death of Seth Rich and another government employee, Vince Foster. Now, people are definitely going to call me a conspiracy theorist about this, but when I see similarities like missing photographic evidence, anyone questioning the story being immediately called a conspiracy theorist and being kind of like, you know, run out of town and cease and desisted and made fun of on the internet, and all that. Why is that happening?
Don't know.
It seems strange, doesn't it?
It is strange, yeah. It's to cause somewhat of a distraction or a deflection, I guess I should say. You know what I mean? If they can shift the narrative to, in this particular case, to this horrible former DC detective who's really just
talking about you,
talking about me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
shift the narrative to that.
You seem like a nice guy.
Instead of being focused on who killed this guy and listen to what I'm saying. But see, and I think they've been somewhat successful with shifting the narrative.
Absolutely.
We went to the crime. I went to the crime scene. I knocked on doors. A lot of the people I talked to said no one knocked on any doors. No one said, "Hey, did you see anything?" Which normally collecting witnesses near the crime scene is pretty much 101. I went to the convenience store, which is cat corner from W and Flagler, and asked for the camera footage, and got really kind of an aggressive response from people coming to the store, third parties, in kind of an intimidating fashion. Somehow that's lost. The convenience store footage is lost.
The police department has that.
They do.
The police department has the camera footage.
Have you seen any of that
I
footage?
haven't seen. I couldn't see it.
I haven't seen it.
No, they told me I don't need to see it.
You don't need to see it.
I don't need to see it. I'm only
This is not the George you're looking for, Rod.
That's what I was told. I can't see it.
So you've been told the convenience store.
But I was told that the video. But I was told that it doesn't really show much.
Well, then why can't we see it? So there's really more questions than there are answers at this point.
But where did you get the name Wingate Robinson? You said, I know that was one of the officers on the scene.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about that person? Or?
Well, there's a strong tie to John Podesta at Georgetown. He ran track for Georgetown, and I think he was a running back at Georgetown. And I don't know what kind of connections to the Podestas since then, but I do know Heather Podesta, the previous wife of his brother Tony, has strong ties with the DC police.
I see. And
that's where pressure could be coming from. And I think almost a kind of a fatherly interest in Officer Wingate Robinson. So I just think everyone wants to see an arm's length relationship in the investigation and can't understand why these normal things don't happen.
Right.
So I think that's and it's odd because I published all the badge numbers and I published all the names, but his name was capitalized, almost like if you're press, talk to this guy, because it was just an odd press release. It was an odd press release.
Well, those are really all the questions that I had. George, anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I have a couple. I mean, would the shot spotter be able to? I mean, the 22 sounds a lot different than a 44 or 38, right? Mm-hmm. Would it be able to determine the caliber of the gun?
Not precisely, but it'd give you a pretty good idea.
Did they share that information with you?
I didn't need to see it.
Okay.
Oh, you was told. Oh, that's what you're told,
we didn't
right?
need to see it.
I don't need to see it.
So there was
it's really an obstruction of your investigation.
There was an FBI car that was burglarized, and the FBI offered $10,000. There was a weapon stolen, but more importantly, a secure radio that was missing. Any connection? It's odd. What seemed odd to me is the FBI would offer the $10,000 for the recovery of the radio, but not offer $100,000, let's say, for the recovery of information relating to Seth Rich's death.
Yeah, I can't say anything about that.
Got it. I
want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't.
So what do you think the odds are that you'll be able to publish your report?
We're working. My attorney is working with the family's attorney, and we're trying to reach some kind of a settlement. They adamantly do not want me to release any information I have, period, no matter what. So we'll have to see where it goes.
Okay. Is there, have you been involved in any of these cases where there's a public right to know versus the family's wishes? I mean...
I haven't.
Yeah, okay.
See, because it's interesting, this murder case really has become kind of the crux of the whole entire impeachment, where it's a question of Russia hacking or some internal person leaking.
Mm-hmm.
And, irrespective of what anyone thinks about the man who is the president currently, we're talking about an assault on the office of the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like a very serious matter to have all of these things happening to really obstruct the effective investigation of this murder that is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're very concerned about that, and that's actually why we asked you here today. And really happy.
It's got to be one of the two. Well, the first two doors that you spoke of, but it's either a leak or it's a hack at this point. I mean, Schumer and Schiff are pushing the hack pretty strong, or it could be a leak.
And that answer is behind door number 3.
But you don't need to look behind that door.
But I can't see behind. They don't want me to see behind.
That's quite crazy.
Okay.
Well, listen, Rod, we really appreciate the time, and we appreciate you being as forthcoming as you could be.
Nice meeting you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hopefully, we can speak to you again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's interesting that they're having this Trump thing right now with Sally Yates talking about potential leaks of classified information and people who might have given the Russians access to information. Looking at these 3 brothers who had access to top secret information in our Congress and still work for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So the problem with that is they make 3 times as much money as everybody else in their pay grade. They have 12 houses. Their friends have 12 houses. They have different Social Security numbers. People that have died in California 20 years ago, they threatened to kidnap their stepmother's relatives in Pakistan. They threatened the IT director in Congress for more password capability for the access to congressional information. Just wondered why none of that came up today in the hearings.
Well, let's just focus on Russia, and then we don't have to actually talk about what's really going on. I've talked to so many different people that are really convinced of the Russia thing. I guess if you just keep saying it enough times. Here in Canada, it was in Maclean's magazine. They thought, oh, well, that must be real then. If you feed it to people enough, then they're going to actually believe it.
Just a matter of how much you want to invest in trying to prove Hillary didn't lose the election. You know, I mean, it's just...
Speak to Brad Bauman, please. Speaking. Hi, Mr. Bauman. This is Neil Wolf. I'm with TheLightReports.com. And I just wanted to call and ask you a couple questions regarding your representation of the Rich family.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask, are you doing this pro bono?
I am.
You are. And may I ask why the timing of, you stepping in, I guess, hadn't seen anything until, I guess, about mid-May of you representing them. What was the motive to wait, I guess, 10 months since Seth has been murdered to represent them?
Actually, I would look back even further than that. I've been with the family since last July. I was asked by the family to help them basically 2-3 weeks after Seth had been murdered.
Oh, okay, because I hadn't seen you involved in that, at least in the public eye. Is there stuff out there that I missed on that?
Yeah, there should be some clips going back that far. Certainly, right about, I'm trying to remember precisely, but no, I've been with the family since July.
Oh, okay. I'll go back and check that because I hadn't seen anything. Prior to, I guess, around mid-May. Now, you were the representative that sent a cease and desist to Rod Wheeler.
No, I was not. It's okay. Lawyers sent a cease and desist to Rod Wheeler on behalf of the family. I'm not a lawyer. I do not represent the family in any legal matters. I am merely here to help them with the large amount of press inquiries surrounding the case and to help.
Now, the lawyers who sent the cease and desist, were they hired by the Rich family or are they pro bono as well? Or
that is more of a question for the lawyers. But yes, the family directly hired them. I do not know whether they're working on a pro bono basis or on a paid basis. I assume, and this is just an assumption because, again, I don't really get involved in that level of detail, but I assume that even in a pro bono situation that most lawyers require some sort of what do they call it, a retainer, a small retainer to, represent them. I don't know exactly how that works because I'm not a lawyer.
Okay. And what exactly, will you help refresh my memory, did they demand that Mr. Wheeler cease and desist doing? All investigative activities?
No, the cease and desist is specifically requested for him to stop talking to press publicly.
To stop talking to press publicly about this?
To stop talking to press about Seth Rich and investigations, and exactly.
Now, as I understand it, Mr. Wheeler is a former D.C. homicide detective who, as I understand it, still has, which is understandable, still has connections within the D.C. MPD. And I read an article that he had said that one of his inside contacts there, I think a current homicide detective, had informed him that the investigation had been shut down, and I think he even mentioned that it hadn't come from the chief's office. And I guess the implication there is that looking higher up the power structure in the D.C. government, that it would have come from the Mayor Bowser's office.
That is completely false.
So you're saying that Mr. Wheeler is lying and that detective in the D.C. MPD never told him that?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I am saying that Mr. Wheeler, either knowingly or unknowingly, is passing on about the status.
They're passing on false information, you said?
Either knowingly or unknowingly, because I'm not going to impugn his motives. I don't know what they are. But he's either knowingly or unknowingly passing on false information regarding an active criminal investigation, which is precisely why there is a cease and desist order for him to talk to press.
Okay.
He is doing more harm than good.
Okay. What now, in regards to, I've been just trying to dig and trying to find out, in regards to my understanding is that Seth Rich was alive at the scene and made it to the hospital alive and was sitting up in his bed and talking, and was in the hospital alive for hours. It seems like I need a confirmation on which hospital he was taken to. Can you give some clarification on the post-shooting series of events?
I actually can't, because these are specific questions about an active investigation. For a timeline in terms of what has actually occurred, I do have to ask you to go to the Metropolitan Police Department, because I'm not authorized to speak on that.
Can you at least share with me the hospital he was taken to? Because I've never seen a case like this where it's such a mystery as to what hospital the man was taken to. Why would that be sensitive information in regards to an ongoing case as to what hospital the guy was taken to?
I don't know. That is a question for the Metropolitan Police Department and not me.
Have they asked you specifically not to disclose that information?
No, they have not asked me specifically not to disclose that information. I am not allowed to just simply talk about any of anything that is party to an active criminal investigation. And the reason why I have to be very careful there is because in a situation where there's an active investigation, anything that I do say can be used in either a way to adversely affect that investigation or the criminal prosecution of whomever eventually is arrested for the crime. So I am duty bound to ensure that I am giving both the family the space that they need in terms of what I'm saying, so that they can get justice, and the police department the space that they need in order to investigate the case. That's what I'm duty bound to do.
Well, okay.
I definitely ask you to just direct those questions to the police department.
Well, I guess then my response would be to you that you are implying then by
not being willing to disclose the hospital he was taken to, that activities at the hospital then are part of the criminal investigation? Because
yes, exactly. Because anything that might have been said by Seth Rich to criminal investigators are a matter for the investigators to follow up on, to investigate, to follow through on, and to otherwise figure out if they can directly lead to who murdered him. So I cannot talk about that sort of.
So I guess what you just did disclose, though, is that you verified that Seth Rich was alive and had the opportunity to speak to investigators after he was shot.
All that I confirmed with you was that he definitely was not pronounced dead until a few hours after he had made it to the hospital. And
do you know the time of death?
That is a matter that has been reported in the past, is easily verifiable.
Can you just tell me the time of death and where he died?
I will again not talk about anything regarding that. And I am sorry. Wait, hold on. Please, allow me to just say this. I am very, very sorry if that leaves you with the impression that I have something to hide here. And I
don't have that.
It kills me. But I can't talk about that.
I don't have an impression at all. I'm just trying to determine. I've never seen a case where we can't even effectively determine what hospital the man was taken to after being shot. I've never seen a case like this, and I'm trying to understand why that's so hard to determine.
I hear your frustration. Take it up with the police department. Just pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and call the police department.
Well,
call the police department.
I spoke to the detective, one of the two homicide detectives on this case, a month or several weeks after the event occurred. And so I don't have a whole lot of confidence in gaining much information from those guys. But I'm just, one of the reasons I'm asking about the hospital, and, you know, of course, these things, you know how full of crap there is, some, you know, stuff on message boards and stuff. But apparently there was somebody that wrote on 4chan who claimed to be, yesterday, claimed to be an attending surgeon.
I saw that.
The hospital that he said is Washington Memorial, and that he attended to Seth Rich's wounds on a surgical basis, and then was not able to. He is asserting that then the wounds were not life-threatening. There was a minor wound to the liver and to the bowel area, and he indicated they were not life-threatening. They were treated surgically, and that then he was essentially cordoned off, and that he, as his surgical physician, was not even allowed to see him, and only one other physician, along with police officers, were with Mr. Rich at the time.
Hold on one sec, because I actually know what you're referencing, because it showed up in my tweet stream, and I do want to.
I can read it to you if you'd like. I have.
Read to me what was said exactly.
I will. 1 second. Let me just from my desk. I've got it right here.
Sure.
Okay. Says that this was posted by RHOTYJAG, some uppercase, some lowercase in there. Fourth-year surgery resident here who rotated at WHC, Washington Hospital Center, last year. It won't be hard to identify me, but I feel that I shouldn't stay silent. Seth Rich was shot twice with 3 total gunshot wounds, entry and exit and entry. He was taken to the OR emergency where we performed an X-lap and found a small injury to segment 3 of the liver, which was packed, and several small bowel injuries, pretty common for gunshots to the back exiting the abdomen, which we resected. 12 centimeters of bowel and left him in discontinuity. Didn't hook everything back up is what that means, with the intent of performing a washout in the morning. He did not have any major vascular injuries otherwise. I've seen dozens of worse cases than this, which survived, and nothing about his injuries suggested to me that he'd sustained a fatal wound. In the meantime, he was transferred to ICU and transfused 2 units of blood when his post-surgery crit came back negative 20. He was stable and not on any pressors, and it seemed pretty routine. After 8 hours he arrived, we were swarmed by LEOs, law enforcement officers, and pretty much everyone except the attending and a few nurses was kicked out of ICU, disallowing visiting hours, normally every odd hour, 1 a.m., et cetera, et cetera. It's not something we routinely do. It was weird as hell. At turnover that morning, we were instructed not to round on the VIP that came in last night. That's exactly what the attending said, and no one except for me and another resident had any idea who he was talking about. No one here was allowed to see Seth except for my attending when he died. No code was called. In other words, like a code blue or whatever when somebody's red flatlining. I rounded on patients literally next door, but was physically blocked from checking in on him. I've never seen anything like it before, and while I can't say 100% that he was allowed to die, I don't understand why he was treated like that. Take it how you may. I'm just one low-level doc. Something's fishy, though, that's for sure. That's the end of the statement. I got to say, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but whoever the heck it is, if they're a fraud and they're not really a doctor, they sure did their homework in advance as far as the medical terminology goes.
No, sure. And I mean, like, listen, you know, it, like so many of these other things, you know, this definitely sounds like something that could be plausible, but I don't. First off, you know, have you called Washington Hospital Center yet?
No, I have not.
Maybe you should call Washington Hospital Center and see if they will confirm any of these things. Okay? I need, like, honestly, like, it is so important for me that we get the facts right on this, that I don't know, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, to ensure, like, for instance, you know, I need to figure out what I'm allowed to say in terms of even what hospital he was in. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this, because there are some who speculate that, and, you know, what a lot of the controversy forms around is that Seth Rich was a Bernie Sanders fan, and that Seth Rich was disgruntled at the way in which the DNC, some would feel, unfairly treated Bernie Sanders in the primary process, and that Seth had access to the DNC's email database, and that he was indeed the person that leaked that information to WikiLeaks. What is your take on that?
Is
that a possibility, or is that something you feel
zero
has absolutely been disproven?
It's not just positively disproven, but there is zero chance that is true.
Do you have evidence that backs up that statement you just made?
Yes. Yes, I do. Evidence number one, that the laptop has never left the family, that it was inspected by both the family and by the Metropolitan Police Department that there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever that he was ever in contact with anyone at WikiLeaks or anyone associated with WikiLeaks at any point. Number two, that his job...
Hold on one second before you move on. So you're saying that the Rich family actually still has possession of Seth's computer and that the D.C. police and the FBI never had possession of those?
And that the FBI has never been involved in this case at all.
Right, okay. I'm just clarifying. So the D.C. MPD never took possession of his personal computer?
No, the D.C. police and the family inspected the computer. The family had possession of the computer.
So the D.C. police and the Rich family sat down and inspected the computer together, but the D.C. police never actually had full possession of it to do, forensic work on the computer.
After it was determined that there was no evidence that linked Seth or his job to anything that to link him or his job to the murder in the eyes of the Washington Police Department, the family was given the computer back.
Okay. So DCMPD did have possession of the computer for some period of time, days or weeks?
Not weeks.
Days.
Okay. Perhaps days.
Okay. So what you're saying
in that period, yes, that there was absolutely no way definitively that the Metropolitan Police Department did anything to that laptop.
Okay. Do you think
I am definitively knocking that down?
Well, do you think, though, it's one thing, that he did have, and I'll take that at its face, that he had no communication with WikiLeaks or a middleman or anything like that through his PC, but that certainly isn't the only means by which we communicate these days. Is it not a possibility, considering, Seth's access to those emails, is it not a possibility that he communicated with either a middleman or WikiLeaks themselves through other means? Or through a third party?
It is not just unlikely, but is almost impossible, based on everything that we know, that he would have had any access to those things, and certainly
that he would have had access to the
Hold on. Well, and we know 100% that he did not have access to those emails.
So you said he did not.
A 100% certainty that he never had access to any emails from the Hillary campaign, from the DNC, and then I do apologize. I don't mean to cut this off, but I'm going to have to take the call that's coming in right now. He never had access to any email of the DNC, the DCCC, which was also hacked, John Podesta, the Hillary campaign.
Well, Podesta's email wasn't hacked. He was phished. He gave his own password up to somebody.
Sure. But my point is that he never had access to any of this.
Okay. Well, now, let me make one other point, please, that I've seen, that I have seen people say, and I'm not sure if this was you, and I'm sorry, I can't recall who I've seen quoted as saying this, but basically that it's shameful. Oh, I know who said this. Miss Brazil, Donna Brazil. She said it's shameful that people are implying that Seth Rich may have done these email leaks, and it's a shameful way to leave his memory, etc. And I've seen some folks come back and say, wait a minute, that's not shameful. If the guy was actually a Bernie Sanders supporter, and he which a lot of people feel like Bernie Sanders was, not treated fairly in the primary process by the DNC, and Seth felt that way, then I don't think it's shameful either that if those are the facts and that he felt that was the case, I don't see it as a shameful act for him to release the evidence that shows that his candidate was not treated fairly by his party. So what is your take on that? Because I don't see that as shameful. I see that as an act of courage.
and honesty, integrity.
So, yes, the truth is, and here's the absolute truth. If everything that you just said were the facts, if indeed he was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and if indeed he felt as though he was duty-bound to do this, and if in fact he had access to these emails, and if in fact he had access to the right people either through an intermediary or whatnot, that he did this, then you are absolutely correct. That is a principled act. But guess what? But guess what? He was not a Bernie supporter. He did not have access to the emails. He did not ever get in touch with anyone with WikiLeaks. He simply did not have every one of those conditions that you just said. And so those conditions, and let me tell you something, I think that, you may or may not know this about me. I'm a very lefty guy, dude. Like, I don't know how much you research the work that I've done, but as of last year, I was taking on, and just between us, I was taking on Debbie Wasserman Schultz for her support of payday lenders. I've been going after some of these folks for a very long time. Right.
Bags.
A lot of them are, okay? That's, again, off the record, and I trust that because we're talking very honestly, please.
I hear you.
Please, because I'm talking very honestly with you, I hope that you accept that in the spirit of what I'm doing.
Yes.
Nothing, as somebody who is as liberal as I am, and I am, and I'm not ashamed of that, that there is nothing that has shown me in any way, shape, or form that he either believed this way, felt this way, or acted this way.
So you don't even think that Seth was a Bernie Sanders fan?
I don't.
Okay.
I absolutely do not.
Consequently, he was a Hillary Clinton supporter. Is that correct?
He had been offered and was on the precipice of accepting a job with the Hillary campaign.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you this about this Kim.com guy. What do you think his motive would be in saying, hey, I'll come to the U.S. and show my evidence and this and that Seth Rich was the WikiLeaks guy? What is his motive there, and do you think he's completely lying?
A, I think he is completely lying.
Okay.
B, I cannot speculate on his motives because that wouldn't be fair of me either. But what I do think is that he is lying and that he knows he's lying, which is why, by the way, he didn't provide any evidence. He refused to provide any evidence. And I suspect that the reason why he has since, while he's not backing off, he certainly has gotten a lot more quiet over the last 2 days. I suspect that the reason why he has is because he himself understands that that he doesn't have anything and that he is exposing himself to further legal liability by the family if he were to continue down this path.
Okay. Well, not to rehash, but to go back to the whole thing of, okay, this was a shameful act. Was the cease and desist order by the law firm on behalf of the family, was that issued because the family felt like that if Seth had indeed released those emails, that would have been a dishonorable act?
No, the cease and desist order was issued because the family, let me backtrack that. Let me not backtrack it. It's this simple. It's because the family and Rod Wheeler had a pretty ironclad non-disclosure agreement about any facts about or theories about the case were to be directed to the family and law enforcement only, and that Rod Wheeler is in breach of that non-disclosure by having gone to press without the explicit approval of the family. That's why the cease and desist order was issued.
Okay. Has anybody in the DNC been in touch with you or in any way influenced the way in which you're representing the family?
No.
No.
They have no influence in what I do. Period. Dot.
Okay. Now there was some words.
Wait, with that, listen. I've been on the phone with you for 40 minutes.
I know.
Man.
You've been very take your time. One last question, please. Mm-hmm. That is, as I understood it, there was, and I saw this report a month or two ago, that there was video footage, security camera surveillance video footage of some nature that captured the crime and the crime scene. Are you aware of that? And can you elaborate on it?
I am not, and I refer back to what I had originally told you, which is that I am not allowed to talk about anything pertaining to the criminal investigation or active evidence involved in the investigation, and those questions really should go to the Washington Police Department.
Okay, fair enough.
All right.
And you still feel like that's you're sticking with what DCMPD is saying, that they still think it's a botched robbery?
Yes. And now I really do have to go because it's Joel on the other line, and I take his calls. All right.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for your time. All right, Mr.
No
Bauman.
problem.